So, Shirley, thank you. Good evening and welcome, commissioners, participants, and interested parties to the August 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. I'm Tom Bell, Chairman of the Conservation Commission, and we'll be running tonight's meeting as we implement the Massachusetts and Cohasset's Wetland Protection Acts and the Cohasset Stormwater Management Regulations. We'll be operating this meeting using the Zoom platform. At the start of each hearing, we will elevate applicants to participate. Members of the public wishing to comment shall write their names and addresses along with comments in the chat box to be read into the record. If you do not include your name and address, you will not be recognized. I also want to remind people that we're going to try to hold any first-time hearings to 20 minutes. So please choose your words carefully. You've got 20 minutes to tell us your story, and then if we're not done, we're going to ask for continuation. Present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission are our Conservation Administrator, Angela Gesso, and Town Conservation Agent, Charlotte Pechtel. I'll now take a roll call of the Conservation Commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Will Ashton?
Will Ashton, present.
Tom Bell, present. Eric Eisenhower is not here yet. Oh, Eric, turn your sound on.
You're muted, Eric.
My wife says I'm always muted. No longer. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You're
I'm
present though, right?
Present, yes, present.
Okay, good. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, present.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, present.
and Chris McFarland.
Chris McFarland, present.
I'd like to introduce our two new associate commissioners and praise them for their public and civic duty that they're doing. And please state your name and present when called upon. Sanji Fernando, is he here yet? No.
He'll probably join in a few minutes,
Okay.
but he'll be on, yeah.
Valerio Romano.
Valerio Romano, present.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard. Absolutely. Welcome aboard. So just a reminder, the associate commissioners are full participants in the hearings, so they do not have a vote yet, not until they're full commissioners. So tonight we have a quorum of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 commissioners, and we will be taking all votes via a roll call with each commissioner answering yay, nay, or abstain. Before our first hearings tonight, attendees are informed that the discussion of the show cause hearing for 76 Lamberts Lane has been continued once again. It will be heard on August 24th, 23, inshallah. The discussion of NOI 2315, construction of Government Island Wharf, has been continued until August 24th, 23. Charlotte, was there one more of these that needed to be, that's being continued?
For hearings, no, but 2 certificates of compliance will be continued. Do you want me to say those now or?
Yes, please.
Okay, so stormwater permit 21-11 for 10 Ocean Ledge will be continued to August 24th, and then COC for NOI 20-21 and stormwater permit 20-29 for 18 Dolan Lane Lot C are also continued to 8/24.
Thank you. So those of you that may be in attendance that were anxiously awaiting to hear those, you'll have to wait till next meeting.
And sorry, Mr. Chair, we have someone raising their hand in the audience. I'll just address them. Hi, Joseph. We see you. We'll get to the show cause hearings a little bit later in the evening, but we'll go through the public hearings first.
Thanks, Charlotte. So our first hearing tonight will be 63 Summer Street, notice of public hearings. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public meeting on Thursday, August 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for RDA 2312, removal of a dead tree within the 50-foot wetland buffer located at 63 Summer Street by Christine and Gregory Fletcher. So Charlotte, you want to introduce our applicant, please?
Sure. Yeah, hi Christine. This is Christine
Hello.
Fletcher. She's the applicant and owner of 63 Summer Street. And Christine, I can pull up your RDA submission. Do you want to walk us through
Sure.
your request?
Absolutely. Yes, I'd be happy to. And thanks very much for taking this tonight. I appreciate your time. So you can see that we have a property that abuts kind of at the bottom of the photo there, some wetlands area. The tree labeled number 1 is the tree in question. It sits basically right at the edge of the conservation land, but it does sit in the kind of maintained grass area of our lawn. We had Bartlett Tree Service out to take a look at the health of all of the trees, and this tree was deemed dead. There was no living tissue in the tree. And that they felt that it was potentially a hazard and recommended that it be removed. We've had a couple of big storms, as I know you've been aware of, where a number of very large branches have fallen from the tree during these storms, and we'd just like to, make sure that no one gets hurt from the tree coming down at all. So happy to answer any additional questions if you have anything else for us, but that is kind of the overarching request.
Commissioners, do you have any comments or questions?
Charlotte, do you have any photos of this?
Charlotte, you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you. Yeah, so this is the tree. As you guys can see, it's pretty much right at the edge of the wetland in the 50-foot buffer. She has submitted a variance request and had a report done by Bartlett Tree. They recommended pruning for all the other trees on the property, but this is the only one that they had proposed to remove.
Charlotte, do you know the species of the tree?
If I'm looking at it correctly, I believe it's an oak, and I think Bartlett classified it as an oak tree.
Bartlett classified it as an oak, yes.
And it's well within the 50-foot boundary?
Oh, yeah. Wetlands
Very
right
well.
there.
Very
Probably
well.
like within like maybe a foot or two of the wetland.
It looks to me that it clearly represents a hazard to a thriving population of Phragmites growing right next to it. I can't imagine what else is at risk here, because it's an isolated area of the property. There's nothing built near it. No, I can't imagine any of your children playing into and out of the Phragmites barrier that's there. Could you talk about you mentioned there's a risk that life and limb.
Sure.
All that. What are we
Yes.
talking about here?
No, I mean, it is a play area for my children. You can see that there is a tree. Well, we don't have a great photo of it, but the tree that is in the right side of the photo there is not far away from it, and it has a big tree swing. So my children are down in this area quite a bit, playing on the tree swing, and this is kind of the flat area of our land. So this is where soccer balls get kicked and things like this. So while it is, yes, away from the house, this is actually an area where there's the tree swing. So it's right basically in front of that, but you can see that everywhere else the land sort of slopes down. So this is kind of the flat area where there's plenty of ball playing.
Good, thank you.
I'll note this area was also really wet as well. I mean, obviously from recent rainstorms, but given the sloping of the yard too, it's definitely a wet area. Could potentially explain one of the reasons why the tree just ended up not doing well.
That was the theory from Bartlett, that the tree drowned basically from all the water.
I'm sorry, that tree has been there for 50 years, and that land has been soaking wet for 50 years. This tree water is not new to this tree. All right. I can't imagine that the storms we've had in the last few weeks have knocked this thing off. I think it must be more a question of gradual demise, disease, whatever. But clearly this tree has thrived in the past in a very wet environment.
Yeah, I think, you're right, Eric. I think it's probably the result of slow waterlogging deaths.
Ms. Bartlett, how long has this tree been dead? Did it have leaves last year?
Oh, so I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that.
I'm sorry, Fletcher.
It's okay, Fletcher. Yeah, that's I was waiting for Ms. Bartlett to answer and I didn't, didn't see her. We only bought the property last September and it has been dead since we purchased the property, but I'm afraid I don't know before then when, you know, how long it's been dead.
So I point out that just for example, I have my neighbor has an oak tree about this size, not very far from my property line. And we moved here 13 years ago. It had no bark on it. It's still standing. So imminent is probably not the right term to use here. Who would be, if this tree were to be removed, who would do that?
The company that is doing the work is, and I'm so sorry, it's in the RDA, but I forget their name. It is, sorry, give me one moment.
Would it still be Bartlett or?
No, it's not Bartlett, actually.
Oh,
It's,
Palazza and McDowell Tree
yes,
Company?
that's correct. Yes,
Okay.
that's right. Yes.
So are you aware that our wetlands regulations stipulate that if the tree were to, if we were to permit the tree to be taken down, it cannot be removed from the buffer. It's going to sit there, trunk, branches, the whole works. It's going to sit in the buffer so it rots.
I was not aware of that, no. So the tree, if we took the tree down, you're saying that it would sort of just, we'd have to like let it fall into the Phragmites? Is that what the issue is, or?
Well, it's just, I don't know what where it's actually felled is not relevant. It what can't be removed from the buffer zone.
Yeah,
Okay, I was not aware of that.
The
You can't
reason
cut it
is,
up for firewood and you can't load it into a truck or you can't chip it, none of that.
the reason for that is that even a dead tree serves a purpose in, you know, ecologically in the buffer zone. So our standing is that if it's a hazard and it for falling branches or the tree falling, then felling the tree is fine, but the biomass still has value to the wetlands in the buffer zone, so it should stay.
I see. I was not aware of that, no.
Yeah, if you were to, we're not allowed to add or subtract or remove anything from the buffer zone. That's the way the rules summarize. Now, if you wanted to remove something, you would have to write an NOI and ask for a variance from the wetland regulations, and that's something you may want to do. But the way it is right now, short of doing that, I entirely agree with the position of Mr. Tom, that the tree one way or another has to remain where it is. That's the tenor of our interpretation of the regulation. So
So one of the standard practices, I think what we've done with other tree removal requests is basically that, that if the tree were to be felled, it could be kind of like cut up into small pieces and kind of placed in almost like a pile somewhere. It serves as, wildlife, habitat. We've done that with other felled trees. So yeah, it's not like, Christine, we just like tell you to knock it over and leave it in the yard unless you preferred it that way. But, if it were to be maybe like cut up and kind of just placed somewhere, at the edge of the yard, where it obviously would remain out of like the play area, but it would still be in the buffer zone. And then it would, just kind of serve as, wildlife habitat. That's at least with a lot of tree removal requests we've done, leaving it somewhere, potential replacement of a tree if that's a condition. But at least with the, the tree removal request that we see, that's usually a common, mitigation measure that we tend to ask for tree removal stuff.
Okay, all right. No, that's fine and understood. I wasn't aware of it before, but that's fine.
Sorry.
And just so that I understand, so what you had just said, Charlotte, though, that if, you know, if we, an alternate would be potentially replacing a tree or,
I think I guess commissioners, it's probably up to them too. That's another common condition of if you cut a tree down, you replace it, but
Yep.
we've done that a lot for more like live trees. I don't know consistently. I can't remember if we've done it for dead trees, you know, because this tree is dead, but you know, as commissioners have mentioned, it still has certain, you know, wildlife and biological value to a certain point, even if it is dead, but that could be another option to commissioners, you know, if they're okay with removing the tree from the site, planting another tree, or doing both or either or. But yeah, we don't have like an exact equation. It's more just like a condition on a case by case basis.
okay.
That being said, this is just me speaking, but I'd be supportive of your RDA if you either left that one there or replaced it with another tree. But if you wanted to get rid of it completely, I would suggest an NOI.
Yeah, and actually, I think in the 50, a 2-to-1 replacement would be more acceptable.
Okay.
And of course, the tree would need to be selected from our native tree list.
Charlotte has shared that with me before, so yep,
Good.
I have that.
So I guess you have a decision to make whether you want to submit a full-blown RDA or a NOI, or whether you find our suggestions acceptable, in which case there would be a 2-to-1 replacement, it sounds like, and certainly leaving the wood from the dead tree probably right up against that boundary between your lawn and the Phragmites. You need to stay within the 50 with it, but you can get right up against the edge. So I don't think it would be very disruptive for your yard to
Yeah.
do that.
Okay. Yeah, I think we will not file the NOI. I think that the other options are reasonable.
Okay, so do we actually, Charlotte, make a motion to do this for an RDA? Okay.
Yes, you would motion to issue a negative, if you want it without conditions, -2, if you want it with conditions, -3 determination.
Well, the condition would be that it remains in the buffer or
Right.
in the wetland, one or the other.
Would we allow them to push it into the wetland? It's in the buffer.
I think it should stay in the buffer.
Yeah, or at least right on the edge, you know?
Yeah.
So it's not,
I wouldn't mind dropping it right on that Phragmites, but that's just me.
you'd never see it again, right? Well, only in the winter. Okay, and so I'll make a motion with the to fell the tree with the following conditions, as well as our standard boilerplate conditions. that-
Wait, sorry, Tom, it would be, if you want to make a motion to close the public hearing and issue a -2 or 3 determination, the 3 would be with conditions.
A negative, and it would be a -3 determination
Yeah.
with,
Okay, so I make
with
a
the following
motion
conditions.
to close the hearing with a -3 set of conditions.
Determination.
Determination, thank you, Chris. With the following conditions, that the debris from the tree be left at the within the 50-foot buffer, and 2 new trees be planted within the buffer that are selected from our approved list. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second,
With that, we'll take a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. Passes 6-0-0. So you're good to go.
We,
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Christine.
Welcome.
We didn't need a variance for that.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, yep, one more thing, right?
Thank you.
Can't forget the variance, can we? So I make a motion to issue a variance to work within the 50-foot buffer. Our standard conditions would apply, meaning no mechanized equipment. This has to be done by hand. And when the trees are planted, no herbicides, pesticides are to be used. No fertilizer to be used. Anything else, Charlotte, that we generally include in this? I mean, they're already in there, right? I just wanted.
Well, that's mostly for the orders of condition. We don't have like our boilerplate for RDAs, but yeah, if the variance request can be, you know, what we want to dictate in terms of work in the 50-foot buffer.
Okay, well, we'll keep it simple. No pesticides, herbicides, no fertilizer for the new trees. The trees are again selected from the conservation list. Do I have
Second.
for the variance?
Second.
With a second, we'll move on to a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That variance passes 6-0-0.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you very much. Thanks all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so up next is 80 Nichols Road, notice of public hearings in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw. The Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, August 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on the Zoom platform for RDA 2311 to build a deck and additions to their home located at 680 Nichols Road by Peter and Danielle Schreier. Charlotte, would you introduce the participants or the applicants?
We have Peter, the applicant and property owner, and then Carmen from Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. And Carmen, do we have anybody else in the audience? Is John here too?
Yes, John Toriaki.
Okay. Thank you. I wasn't sure. And John Teriyaki as well, who's the architect. Sorry, I'm promoting him now. All right.
Excellent. Well, good evening. It's been a long time. I am very glad to see a new face. Welcome. My name is Carmen Hudson. I work for Merrill Engineers and Land Surveyors. I represent Peter and Danielle Schreier, who are joining us tonight. Joining us tonight as well is their architect, John Teriyaki. I am going to share my screen, if I may. And can everybody see this plan?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that took a little bit. So as you can see, and if you're familiar with this area, the property at 80 Nichols Road is the last property on the left. That would be the water's side of Nichols Road. But Nichols Road here is a very narrow private way. This is actually the entirety of the end of Nichols Road, which acts also as Peter and Danielle's driveway. It's a crushed stone driveway, very difficult to maneuver. Peter and Danielle bought this property in 2021, and this home is actually a one-story home. Let me just share this picture with you. This is the rear of the property. So as you can see, it's just a one-story home, and I don't have a picture ready to share for you of their garage, but even though it has two doors, two cars cannot park there and open their doors at the same time. So it's really just a one-car garage. So this since Peter and Danielle bought this property, they have discovered all of the limitations that the present home has. The dwelling is connected to sewage and municipal water. The lot has been developed as a single-family residential lot. The yards are primarily lawn. There are some areas on landscape, and there are ledge outcroppings all throughout the site, as you can see with all these hatched areas. There is a coastal bank in the rear associated with Inner Little Harbor. It is comprised of ledge as well. It has a 50-foot buffer zone and a 100-foot buffer zone. The property to the left of the locus has a salt marsh in the rear. And as you can see, the red dashed line are the building setbacks for the property. And there are 2 view easements in the front or in the back. So as you can see, there are a lot of restrictions in this small property. When in the time that Peter and Danielle have had living in this home, they have come up with a design that they think will provide just enough for them to continue living here and to add the joy of having Peter's parents move in with them in the near future. So the design that they have come up with is primarily to offer Peter's parents living area on the first floor, and they are going to put a second floor on the
Carmen, can I interrupt you for a moment?
Of course.
Please cut to the chase here. Let's stay. We're not interested in the relationships people have with each other and their motivations for doing anything. What we want to hear is what you want to build here.
Okay, well, I just
Thank you.
wanted to explain why we were proposing the addition.
That's not necessary. It's not your
Okay.
to our hearing.
Okay, so we are proposing a 462 square foot addition in the rear, 187 square foot addition in the rear as well over here, and an open deck. This will be located within the 100-foot buffer zone. Nothing is proposed within the 50-foot buffer zone. And the addition will be at a distance of about 74 feet to the limit of the ledge coastal bank. So that's about it. This will not trigger a stormwater permit.
Could you please zoom in on the area of construction?
This is it.
Yeah, could you zoom into the area where you're proposing construction?
Right here?
So you're not proposing any regrading?
No. No, just this 2 additions and an open deck.
And there's no trees to be removed?
No, there are no trees back there.
So is it lawn currently?
Yes.
Okay.
So the one addition will be here.
Yep.
The other addition would be on the other side, and then the deck would be right here over lawn. And this is the coastal bank.
So Charlotte, what's the buffer to the coastal bank?
Sorry, what was that?
What is the required buffer to the coastal bank?
The coastal banks get a 100-foot buffer, so it's split up by the 50 and 100 here on the plan. And then there's land subject to coastal storm flowage at the edge of the coastal bank, but that does not have a buffer.
That's over here. Mhm.
50 feet is a variance, but outside isn't.
Correct. Yeah. So they're outside they're not working within the 50-foot buffer. So we don't have a variance request for this one.
And is that just a silt sock being represented to the left, or is that something permanent?
No, it's just a silt sock on both sides.
for anyone here that has more institutional memory of this, do we allow new construction within the 100-foot buffer?
Yes.
We've approved tiny additions. We've approved a shed close to the 50-foot buffer, but still in the 100. Though that was kind of like an existing, structure that was just going to be dropped. But we have approved, small, minor construction projects like decks, small additions, sheds in the 100-foot buffer through an RDA, but nothing that I can remember in the 50. 50 is usually, as we've seen, very minimal type of activity, but they're staying out
Oh,
of the
this is,
buffer here.
this is an RDA?
Correct.
Yeah, I was wondering with the line of questions going, I don't see how it's not applicable, in my mind. It's like almost 600, over 600 square feet of change in,
Well, it's
Yeah,
600 addition plus the deck.
And there's a deck
645
upstairs.
square feet.
so it's applicable in my mind.
Miss Hudson, how large is the deck? What's the area of the deck?
I don't really have the area, but I would say probably around 800 square feet.
So that takes us to roughly 1,300 square feet of alteration.
Forgot the deck, I was just looking at the
However,
addition.
Yeah, the deck is going to be at the elevation of the first floor and it's going to be open.
I think the design, Carmen, it's based on sonotubes and it will have deck spacing. I think you've clarified that on the plan to be 1/8 or 1/4.
Yes.
And then I'm sorry if I missed this, but I think you're also removing, you're offsetting impervious a bit by making that patio that's existing pervious.
Yes, so we're removing some of the patio and making it pervious. And we're also removing this walkway and putting stone dust.
Okay.
Stone dust. People are going to approach the front door on stone dust.
That was their choice.
Hope they have a good welcome mat.
Gotta be careful where you get that too, Ron. A lot of arsenic and stone dust.
Oh,
So,
Wow.
so Charlotte, the reason this came in front of us as an RDA is because of the size, is that correct?
So I spoke with Carmen and the applicants about, you can either try for an RDA or submit an NOI. So they wanted to see if this was acceptable as an RDA. We have approved, decks in the 100-foot buffer through an RDA. We've approved, smaller additions than this in the 100-foot buffer. And then
Right, but do our bylaws require us to consider an RDA based on a size?
No, the main purpose of this submission would just be to see if the commission wants an NOI or not based off of the work that's proposed, and if it won't pose a potential adverse impact to the buffer zones based on the Wetlands Protection Act or our bylaws. So, that's really what we're evaluating here. We're looking at this plan and obviously determining whether or not an NOI is necessary for this work.
So is John Teriyaki on the call?
Yes.
So John, have you designed these two additions? And if so, can you tell us where the runoff's going from them?
Hi, good evening, John Teriyaki Architectural Design. Yes, we have designed the additions in plan and elevation. The runoff, to be honest, we have not made a final determination as to where the runoff from the additions are going, but the deck itself will be pervious.
Right, but I think one of the issues obviously is that right now you have a grass buffer and you have a certain amount of water that's running across the grass and theoretically infiltrating to some degree. But when the deck is built, you know, through shading, et cetera, you're gonna end up with either soil, bare earth underneath, or you're gonna end up with gravel. So if you're dumping the addition water through the deck, then you're going to be likely eroding that area under the deck. And I'm not saying it's any measurable amount, or we can't tell you what it is, but I would say that it's a definite detriment to the 100-foot buffer. If the water's coming off the additions in a different sort of way, then it changes how things are going to be handled. So that's where my questioning was.
So the project as a whole does not trigger a stormwater permit, but
Understood.
if
But we're
you-
not talking about stormwater permit. We're talking about a buffer which is protecting the wetland area. So that's why I'm trying to understand what the total implications of the alteration are. That's all.
if you would consider the RDA, we could add dry wells to the downspouts that come from the additions.
I don't,
We would do that.
What was that?
No, I'm just commenting that Carmen's comment that we would absolutely do something like that.
At the dry wells.
Yes,
Chris, one thought could be just to minimize disturbance, since there'll be footing work under that deck and crushed stone added, maybe a dry well could be placed under the deck so that there's no other excavation on the site. I'm just throwing that out there as an idea.
I think personally, that level of work with the square footage of impact to the 100, I don't think we want to get in the habit of, you know, of voting negative on a RDA for this amount of impact to the 100-foot. My personal opinion is that it is applicable and should have an NOI.
Mr. Chair, we also have a question in the audience. Do you want me to read it? They gave their name and address.
Yes, please.
Okay, so Aaron, I apologize if I pronounced your name wrong. Aaron Popoleski from 82 Nichols Road. Can you please clarify the total square footage being added with the second story as well? Might be a question for John, I believe.
Is the commission asking us this question? Sorry, or do you
Oh,
want me to
sorry,
answer?
this was from Aaron Popoleski from 82 Nichols Road, who used it in the question and answer chat feature.
I'm not sure that that's germane to our conversation either. We have no
Going
jurisdiction.
vertically, it's not adding square footage.
Yeah, we have no jurisdiction about the size of the house or anything. That's more, if this were large enough to require a large home review, then that would go before planning board, and that's where a question like that would be, could be posed and would be answered.
I believe so, yeah. So typically, Aaron, we look at mostly the ground level footprint of what that will do in the buffer zone. Usually the architecturals and those designs are evaluated a little bit more critically under the planning board. And Carmen, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this does need large home review given the square footage increase.
Yes, an application has been submitted.
Okay.
Charlotte, the negative RDAs come with all the standard conditions, or you'd have to do
Oh,
an
sorry.
NOI to do all those?
We don't have like our special conditions boilerplate that we've put with RDAs. I can look into if we want to do that, but yeah, typically our standard conditions come with the orders of condition.
So do any other commissioners have a comment? I think at this point, our determination should be whether or not we require an NOI for this. And I'm sort of leaning towards Chris McIntyre's position that there's enough alteration here so that we probably need to see a full-blown NOI. But
I would say that.
I'm just one vote.
Yeah, I would say that if they're willing to add the dry wells, what would we gain by going to an NOI if that's all we'd require anyway? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a good
We
point.
would be willing to do that. Again, we went with the route of the RDA because it's obviously significantly less expensive than doing an NOI. And based upon the really what we consider to be relatively small additions, staying way away from the the resource area. But we would absolutely do dry wells if that would solve
And
the problem.
it's already lawn as well for 50 or more feet there. So
Correct. It's lawn pretty much all the way down to the water, other than the ledge.
Chris McIntyre, would that, do you think that that's satisfactory?
I mean, no, no, not really. I kind of stand by the fact that this amount of square footage of alteration in the 100 foot, I don't like the idea of, I think it's a lot of alteration. I think it needs to be, I think I'd want to see more, when was the delineation done for the wetlands and the bank and everything? Is that for this project?
When it was done in April.
Okay, yeah, I mean, no, I mean, that, my opinion stands. I think for this amount of alteration, a standard NOI is practical, but that's just me.
Any other commissioners have?
Well, I
opinion on-
just like to read from our regulations, and it says that a notice of intent is required if with respect to any work conducted in or that will remove, fill, dredge, or alter a resource area. So I would have to say that based on what Chris has said and the fact that I do think you are going to end up with a different cover in the resource area, the 100-foot buffer. I think it's probably worthwhile having the NOI.
Chris, doesn't it say resource area, not the buffer to the resource?
It does say the resource area. Yes, you're
There's
right.
a, there's a section in
depending
our
on the nature-
regulations that breaks down activities within resource areas, inner buffer zones and buffer zones. And pretty much for all of them, we do see that a notice of intent filing is in most cases required. However, if the applicant is in doubt as to whether a hearing shall be required by the commission, an RDA should be filed. So it does, at least for the outer buffer zone and the inner buffer zone, it gives applicants the option of submitting an RDA to the commission and then seeing it's up to them. But, any activity in a resource area, of course, and almost always requires the filing of a notice of intent.
So let me throw a question out there. What further information that would we require that we don't already have? What do we have any uncertainty about what this project is trying to accomplish and where it's going to be, and can we have an equal sort of authority to enforce the any conditions we put on if we accept the RDA versus an NOI? I mean, I understand the applicant's desire to not have to go through the full process if it's not necessary. So is it necessary? I guess that's what's in front of us. Do we need more information that's missing, that you think is missing, and how might this change with more data? So,
I get, I don't, I think you're right, Tom. I don't know if there is going to be more information. I am concerned about the, the erosion under the deck. And would a dry well by itself take care of it? You'd probably also need some sort of a covering of something, you know, gravel or something to cause the water not to just run down the hill.
I'm sorry, we're proposing crushed stone to be placed under the deck.
Okay, all right. 4-inch below grade, I'm sorry.
Oh, no,
Stone
these are,
to be placed under deck, plank space to be 1/8 to 1/4 inch. Well, I would probably take care of it. Then what I think what it comes down to is whether or not we think this is a big enough project that it needs an NOI, so.
right. Right. I'm looking at the contours here underneath the deck and off to, I think this plan is oriented north-south. That's what we like to see, but sometimes we don't. But it looks like there is a bit of a some Ving in those in those contour lines, and it looks like things are going to flow out from under the deck, and it's pretty steep down that hill to another flat area, possibly even onto the abutter's property.
Well, here's a question. I mean, these the additions, are they gonna sit on grade or are they gonna have to dig down? Because there's ledge everywhere. Are they gonna do it like what's gonna happen if they run into ledge? Are they gonna
Yeah. So I guess the question is, what's the foundation like and how would the grade change? And I think that should be addressed to Mr. Teraki.
Yeah, the current plan is to have the majority of the project on footings, most likely 12-inch diameter Bigfoot footings that flare out towards the bottom. The additions themselves may be on footings or possibly crawl spaces, depending on further structural engineering. But that's the current plan. And if ledge is encountered, usually they pin, epoxy pin, and cast that into the concrete form and try to do as minimal work as necessary to accomplish that. That's
So-
the current strategy.
So it
And-
won't be a slab and it won't be a perimeter concrete foundation. You're talking about putting it on piers?
Correct. The additions themselves, they may be on piers or they may possibly be on a perimeter foundation on a crawl space, depending on again, the structural engineering that remains to be finalized. But the deck itself will be on footings.
So it doesn't sound like you fully worked out the engineering here.
We have submitted a preliminary foundation plan showing the footings and the layout, and Merrill Engineering has been using that for their calculations. And the footings can actually be seen on the drawing.
So that's what you're going with, although you just posed several alternatives. I mean,
Just really two alternatives. The amount of excavation will most likely be the same because these are Bigfoot footings. So if we don't have a perimeter 10-inch foundation under the additions, we're going to need a field of footings. So the amount of total excavation is not going to be that different with either option. And there is obviously an impervious addition above it in either scenario.
well, we're getting towards our 20-minute, or we've already gone past our 20-minute.
Yes, sorry. Yep.
No, don't worry, Charlotte. I'm watching and so we can bring this to a vote. It sounds like you need to decide whether you want to submit an NOI or not. The vote does not look like it's going to be unanimous. and it's hard to say which way it's going to go here. So you can request a continuance if you like, and we'll be right back where we are right now, or you could submit an NOI and we could probably deal with this quickly next time.
Tom, can I ask one more question?
Yeah,
Which side of the house are you going to access the construction from?
The right-hand side, facing the house, the right-hand side. It's the
Yeah,
only.
there's only way, yeah. So there is only one way to access the site, Eric. There is actually a retaining wall here that is pretty high. So
Right?
you can only come from the front and go around this way.
Can
so we
can
need
you
to
show me
consider-
the photo of that tree again, please?
One addition will be here and the other one would be on the other side.
So we need to consider construction access. We need to consider where stockpiling would take place. And you do have your silt barrier laid out. Is that correct? I'm going to go back to the plan.
Yeah, they did.
Okay. So it seems like there are details that we ordinarily would consider under an NOI that we don't usually contemplate with an RDA. We'd want to have, if you're going to be pouring concrete, we'd want to have a pad, a clean out area. We'd want to see a place to clean the wheels of the vehicles that are moving in and out. I really would encourage you to reconsider here and submit an NOI and address all of the aspects of construction.
I just have a procedural question because it hasn't come up before. If we, I know on an NOI, if we vote on it, it's fine or whatever, whichever way it goes. But if you vote on an RDA and it goes against them, do they just then file an NOI? Or is that the final?
So if we were to issue a positive determination, meaning the commission is just saying that an NOI is required, it doesn't necessarily mean the applicant has to file an NOI. We're just telling them that if you want to do this work, you need to submit one. So they can either move forward and submit an NOI, appeal the decision to DEP, or do nothing.
So
Got it.
I have a question. If we were to continue the RDA, would the commission be okay approving or giving a negative determination for an RDA if we were to add where the stockpiling would be, where the construction access would be, because the work would be exactly the same?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so I guess Peter and
I
Danielle,
think the way to go here is really with an NOI.
well, in that case, then we would ask the commission to vote on our RDA.
Yeah. Yep.
So it seems like we're at the point where we can propose that or make a motion that is it a positive?
Yes, I always have to remember the positive choices. Let me just pull
Yeah,
something
right.
up. So this is the DOA form. I don't think the first two are in question. We know we're in an area of jurisdiction. So actually none of those. The work described is within an area of jurisdiction subject to the act and requires a filing of notice of intent. And then the work is within the buffer zone and will, it'd probably be a positive for determination.
Yeah,
Because we're specifying it's in the buffer zone.
okay. So I make a motion.
Wait, sorry, Charlotte, go back to that, please.
Yep.
Work described.
The area subject to jurisdiction under the act, I think that's implying it's in a resource area. I think the number 4 says it's in the buffer zone.
Yeah.
And will alter an area subject to jurisdiction under the act.
Could we ask one question before you vote?
Yep.
Sure.
If you help us with an NOI, if that's what we're gonna end up doing. The one, yeah, is that okay if we ask one question?
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Does the board have a preference because we may have more latitude on the dining room addition. That's the one if you're facing the house on the left. Would you prefer just to go with sonotubes or something like that? Because what I don't want to do is give you something that you're not looking for, and if that's something I'm pretty sure we can do. Subject to John agreeing that we can do that, I'm pretty sure that addition can go on sonotubes. The other one will be a little bit more difficult, I think, because of the height. Is that something the board would rather see if we come and give you an NOI? What I just want to make you have multiple.
Yeah,
hearings.
Yeah, no, I understand that you'd like to come before us with a plan that
It
that's
passes.
some notion that we're sympathetic to. But that's difficult for us to do under the circumstances. I don't think that we're as concerned about the type of foundation as the area of disturbance. That's really our emphasis here, I think. So I can't say for sure, but I don't think it makes a big difference between having a perimeter foundation, sonotubes, or these Bigfoot. I can't remember the terminology that Mr. Teriyaki used, but these Bigfoot foundations that are piles, essentially, I think concrete piles. I'm not sure how those are different from sonotubes, actually.
They're technically sonotubes. They just
So
have
they are, okay.
yeah, slightly different shape. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think that's the crux of the issue here we're dealing with. It's the complexity of adding a number of new elements to the home, the construction protocols for washout for any kind of cement work that's done, vehicles leaving the site with clean wheels, stockpiles, stuff like this that really we need to pin down. And it would be, since you're not prepared to do that tonight, and it would be cumbersome to do this under an RDA, I think it really is advisable to come back with an NOI, have all your ducks in a row, and I suspect that things will go fairly smoothly, since it is a relatively small alteration and footprint in any case, so.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments before I?
No, was that the whole list of what we need to do? Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we understood what your expectations were. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. We try to make that as clear as we can. We want to help you rather than thwart you. So with that, Charlotte, I would offer a motion, a positive for determination for this RDA.
And close the public hearing.
And close the public hearing. Thank you.
Okay. Yep.
Thank
I'll
you.
second that.
We'll have a vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, no.
Eric Eisenhower,
Can we review what a no and a yes? Will voted no. What are the options here and what are we saying with a yes and a no here?
you're with the
We're-
yes,
we're-
with your yes, we're requiring that they come back with an NOI.
Okay. I vote yes, they come back with an NOI.
Will, do you want to reconsider, or you still, you think that the RDA would be more appropriate?
No, given that it's lawn and it's at the edge of the 100-foot buffer, I don't think that it would affect the resource area, so I'll stick with a no.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. The motion passes 5-1-0.
1-0, yeah.
5-1-0.
Yeah, nay abstain.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so let's see here, where are we at? Nichols Road. So now we're at our show cause hearings, the our most dreaded part of our meeting, I would say. So we're going to start with 81 Border Street, installation of float platform within the Gulf River protected resource area. Charlotte?
Okay. Yep, and I'm promoting the property renter, Joseph Uriarty. Hi, Joe.
Charlotte, can I interrupt here?
Yep.
This was issued to the property owner. Isn't that
Yes, it
correct?
was issued to Gulf River LLC.
And so why are we talking to a renter?
Joe, I believe you can attest to this, but I believe it was you who installed the float against the existing dock. You are also muted.
Yes, that was me. I installed the dock.
Yeah, so the letter by default usually goes to the property owner, but as the renter, Joe received the letter as well and came to me and let me know that he's the one who installed the float. So just so that the commission can see a photo, you know, we're up against the Gulf River, and then this is what the float looks like. There is an existing dock. It's been here for a while. We've tried to locate the origin of we tried to identify the origin of the dock, but it's definitely been around for a long time. And there's no NOI or RDA filing for this dock. The house was built in the 1955 or 1960. And there's no record that I could find in our archives of this dock. And so the dock is an existing structure here. And the float was recently installed I think a month ago. And then I talked to Joe. I don't think we were able to find the old Chapter 91 license for this. Because usually
No.
Chapter 91 licenses have a schematic of what the dock would be, you know, how the dock would have been built. But we could not find that on our records. Basically, we have a dock with no permitting history, but it has been here for a while and the float was recently installed within the last month.
So it seems like there's really two issues. We have an unpermitted dock and an unpermitted float. If
Sorry,
there's
my
no-
screen is freezing.
There's no Chapter 91 authorization for either one of them.
I don't know if I don't know if
Well,
there is one, we just don't have it. Not
if nobody can find it and presumably there's been a search done of the state records for this, or has there been?
Joe, did you contact DEP at all?
I have, but it's taken quite some time, so it wasn't unfortunately done in time for this meeting.
Yeah, the presumption is the dock could have potentially existed prior to 1973. So it would have if there is one, it would have been under Chapter 91, but probably not under a notice of intent if it's that old.
Well,
But usually,
the
oh.
word I got from the Porters, the previous owners, the dock was installed in 1963.
Okay.
So it's going to be hard to find any records of that, only because it's all paper at that point. So that's what we're up against right now. But the previous owners of the house, occupants too, Ken Porter, he lived here since he was a baby. He's almost 60 years old now, and he said he would, you know, let you guys know that there's been a dock out there for the entire time he's lived there. So.
Okay. Yeah, usually changes to existing structures or the placement of obstructions in the water, either, you know, in most cases require an RDA or an NOI. So that's, I guess.
I mainly did it to make it safe. It was just, it was falling apart and falling into the water. So it's the reason why I did it. I didn't want my kids walking out there and, you know, going through it. It was all rotted and everything. So I figured replace it before someone got hurt. And I originally had hired a company to do it. I was given the company by the harbor master, Lori, and they just didn't show. So I was forced to do it myself. Again, not knowing that I needed a permit to replace something that was already existing.
Well, the float wasn't pre-existing, was it?
Yes. That's a walkway. What you're looking at right now is a walkway out to the float. There was always a float there. I got rid of the old float and put the new float in. If you look at the picture, see that right there? I
Yeah,
attached to
we're zoomed in on aerial imagery.
the,
Charlotte, you want to back up a while ways here?
that was the little box that the little square piece right there. At the end, that was all dilapidated. So I basically cut that thing in half because it was basically the front end was in the water. I cut that in half. I go back to the floating part of it and then attached an extension back basically to where it was. I mean, I may have gone over, 4 feet bigger than it was before. And I know I went over like 5 or 6 feet wider. That dock on the side there was the neighbor's dock.
Well, if it's the neighbor's dock, why is something missing? Stop, Charlotte.
Yep.
Go back.
Hmm.
So it looks to me like what's being stored on the marsh is the winter storage for your
The
dock.
old dock. That was the old dock, right?
Yeah.
And you see that walkway right there? There's a walkway and a dock. If you see the walkways on top of the dock.
Yeah.
Because this walkway has to come out over the rocks. So it comes out, that first walkway part there goes over land into rocks, and then it goes, that second piece on top goes down to the actual piece on the bottom. That piece on the bottom was the part that was all rotted and so forth and half sunk. That's what I had cut, and that's what I put on the new dock too. Yeah, you see what I mean? It goes, that next picture, when you can see that it's two separate pieces. That's that
Right.
long piece there,
Right.
and that's the float.
So it seems like what needs to happen here is you need to go and get all of your permits in order. If you don't have a Chapter 91 license for this, you can't call that up, then
Now I'm gonna try to find it. That's what I'm trying to do. I know there is. I have so many people that have lived there saying it was, so it's existed forever, so it
You
doesn't
need
make
to
any
find a-
sense.
you need to find a.
I know, I will.
Meanwhile, you need to remove your float, I think.
Oh, that's not gonna happen. I mean, I don't, that's just not gonna happen.
I don't think that's the right attitude to take in the.
I'm not taking an attitude. I'm saying that we can obviously see from these pictures that there was a float there. We can see it was dangerous. I'm not taking an attitude with you whatsoever.
You put a larger float in.
Listen, want me to get a new permit for this float? Is that what you want me to do? Is that the easiest way? What's the easiest way for you guys to allow me to keep this float? That's all I'm asking. I don't want to cause any trouble. I just want to
I
keep
don't
my
think
float.
what's easy for us is a concern here. It's you need to abide by the town bylaws and the state laws for this to be replaced.
Who controls this waterway right here? Is that state controlled? Because it does go to Situate, so that's a state controlled waterway, correct?
That's why you need a Chapter 1 license.
So I don't have to deal with Cohasset on this. I got to go to the
Yes.
state for it, right?
Yes, you do.
So,
Both. Gotta
Joe,
go both.
usually, well, this is of course after the Wetlands Protection Act was established. Usually for a Chapter 91 license to be issued, DEP now looks to see whether the local issuing authority has issued an order of conditions. And so normally moving, in the past, it was different when you just had Chapter 91, but now for the last 50 years, you get a local order of conditions from the Conservation Commission. And then when you apply for a new Chapter 91 license or a modification of the license, they will look at the order of conditions and they'll look at the approved plan, and then they will go through their review outside of our purview. But usually the first step moving forward for Chapter 91 now is to obtain an order of conditions from the commission. So it's kind of like split jurisdiction, under the local bylaw, the Wetlands Protection Act, and then the anything past mean high water issuing Chapter 91 jurisdiction under the state.
English, Charlotte. What do you want me to
Sorry.
do?
Yeah. So I guess my suggestion for commissioners would be that if Mr. Uriarty wanted to keep the float and the modification done to the existing dock, obviously he's already doing this, but it's in his best interest to locate the original Chapter 91 and go through whatever parameters that the state would need. But then for the local authority, since we are dealing with an alteration to the resource area, we would need at least an RDA or an NOI submission to approve the modification on the local end. And it's a hard concept of chicken before egg. I mean, I think it would be definitely beneficial to find that old Chapter 91 and see what the license says and how long the license is good for, because sometimes Chapter 91 licenses, I don't know how long they last on average, but so that would be, I think, in your best interest, Mr. Uriarty, not just to locate the state license, but also to file something with the commission for the modification in the resource area.
Oh, okay.
Unless commissioners have other thoughts, but.
Yeah, any comments from the other commissioners?
Nothing.
Take the float out and get an NOI.
Who said that? Who said that?
I
Take the
did.
floor and get-
Yeah, and I second that.
I did.
Third that.
Yeah, so that's where we're at.
You wanted it in simple terms. Those are simple terms. Take it out, get an NOI.
You'll get an NOI.
You'll get an enforcement order.
It is what it is. I'll fight it.
Okay,
I'll fight it. I'll see you in court over this. Don't bother me. Like I told before, I got more money than I need, so I'd be more than happy to fight you guys on this. Because you're a ridiculous group. To say a person can't put a float, he wants his kid to drown.
Where's your
That's what you're
camera?
basically saying, right?
Camera.
I think we're done here.
We're done, all right.
So Charlotte, I think that we've covered this. Mr. Uriarty has his instructions of what's required.
So, all right. Sounds like if we wanted him to submit an NOI, you should do it through an enforcement order.
Yes.
You will need to vote on that, and whatever parameters that we want, we should be listing in the enforcement order.
I don't think an enforcement order is necessary if he willingly removes the
Okay.
float until he
Okay.
has all his permits in order. But if he wants
Okay.
to remain belligerent, then the enforcement order is necessary to
Okay.
have the float removed.
Do we want to send a letter then, just confirming that the float needs to be removed by a certain time, and if not,
Well, first of all, who's the ultimate authority on like the waterways? If he doesn't have a Chapter 91,
I mean,
Do we
that's definitely a separate
notify
issue. Yeah,
notify the proper, do
So-
what we have to do, but I think we should also be notifying the condition to, is it Coast Guard? That's a waterways. That's
I'll have
that's
to
like
speak
a-
with DEP.
That's a
'cause
navigable waterways that's subject to Coast Guard permitting.
I will have to speak with DEP about that. I did talk to them previously. They said at the very least on the local level, you would need an RDA or an NOI. And then any, modifications within Chapter 91 jurisdiction would need the state's approval. So, I told him it was in his best interest if there is a Chapter 91 license to locate that, see what the conditions are, what he can and can't do within Chapter 91 jurisdiction. But under the local authority, the existing dock was there and it already was there, but with the modification he just made, it should have gone through the commission. We do have in the definition of alter, the placing of obstructions in the water or the installation or modification of structures of any kind. So under our bylaw, it's meeting the definition of alter. So it should have come through us either as an RDA or an NOI. But yeah, the state would be a separate issue that he would have to consult with them on their license if there is
Who
one.
informed you of this?
The harbor master.
Yeah, so the harbor master has taken notice.
It's also
that-
in an area of her jurisdiction as well. Yes.
Right. So
Mhm.
I, thi-
Charlotte,
I think,
sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I would recommend that we issue an enforcement order. That's what.
Yeah,
I-
we
that's
can
what
give
I'm-
him, we can give him a set time period to
Yeah.
take out the float. I will just note that be careful with the time parameters, because if this is going to go to court, the fines would need to be issued under a certain time frame. It's not going to lie, very tedious, but if we want to do that, we'll give him a date saying, take the float out by this date and submit an NOI by this date, if he wants to keep it.
So Charlotte, I would recommend that we speak with town council and see whether or
Okay.
not we should actually be dealing with the property owner rather than the renter.
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, the letter was sent to the property owner.
So let's pursue that first to make sure we're addressing the appropriate party here before we.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
do
I
anything.
will, if you're okay with it, I'll send a letter back to the owner and saying the commission has required that the float be removed ASAP. If it's not removed by the next meeting, an enforcement order may be issued. So you can give him a warning, a final warning to maybe change his ways after speaking to the property owner.
Charlotte, I think you should also talk to the harbor master, because
Yeah.
this may be a endangerment.
Mhm. She was the
So-
one who reported it to me and she knew it needed our approval. So I'm sure she has her own concerns
Well,
as well.
yeah,
happy
you
to speak
should,
with her
the
then.
conversation should be between you and town council to figure out what has to
Okay.
be done. I mean, it's.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
there was a float there. The new float is 3 to 4 times as big, and it's much
Mhm.
farther out into the water, so it
Yeah.
definitely is obstruction.
Yeah.
It needs to be removed.
Right. Okay, I will send them a letter telling them to remove it by August 24th. If they don't remove it, we can, we'll speak with. council.
Why August 24th?
Well, that's our next meeting. If you want to issue an enforcement order, we'd have to vote on it. I mean, I could technically do it and then you guys could ratify it, but I could do that too. You'd have to
I think-
ratify it at the next meeting.
I think the first thing really to do is to have a conversation with town council
Okay?
and make sure we're dealing with the right party here.
Yeah. I spoke to the property owner as well, so he is aware. And he was also looking for the Chapter 91 license.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So let's straighten that out first.
Okay. Okay. Do you want me to
Yes.
follow up administratively then with you, Tom? And, I
Yeah.
can still send the letter telling him to take it out. Do we want to say within, I don't know.
Well, you have to decide who gets the letter.
Who gets the
Yeah,
letter?
no, I'm going to send the letter. I'll
But-
confirm that
but-
with council first.
But 21 days is too much time.
Okay.
I mean, 21 days, summer's over, the guy like, okay, I'll pull it out, I don't care.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so.
So do we want to do 10 days?
Yes.
5 days?
Charlotte, is it feasible to have a conversation with town council tomorrow?
I'll talk to him tomorrow morning.
Okay.
He said he would talk to me tomorrow morning.
Okay, that's good. So after you've had a conversation with him, why don't you get back to me and we
Yep.
will send an enforcement order to the appropriate person and
Okay.
How will we deal with this if we can't vote on it?
I think you can either vote on it now to issue it to the appropriate party with whatever parameters, or I can speak to council, let you know, and I could issue an enforcement order, which have to be ratified by the commission at the next meeting.
Yeah, so that gets back to Chris's point that 21 days is a long time.
Mhm. Well, I mean, I can issue an enforcement order potentially tomorrow or Monday, but then it would have to be ratified by you guys at the next meeting. So that would be like, you guys would be looking at it after the fact.
Okay, all right,
That works.
let's do that.
Okay, You guys want to let me do whatever conditions I want?
Well, I think you know what's appropriate here, right? I mean,
Yep.
as Chris pointed out, the float is considerably larger than
Mhm.
the one that's been deteriorated. It's uncertain whether there's a Chapter 91 license for this.
Mhm.
And they're storing their
Right.
the past owners of this have been storing their dock and float on the
Mhm.
marsh, which we
Mhm.
certainly do not allow.
Okay,
So all of those things need to be taken into consideration, I think.
right.
And, you know, this is the riverfront. This is a navigable waterway. So there's no question about jurisdiction here.
Mhm. Okay, I will speak to town council tomorrow.
Okay.
So you guys don't want to vote on an enforcement order, you just want me to send it out and then you guys ratify it at the next meeting?
If that is, if I want to do this so that we don't wait 21 days or 31 days or whatever it is.
Right,
And so if you can issue an enforcement order that is enforceable
yeah,
in that
I can.
period, then, okay. So then I think that's fine and we can ratify it. How would that, you would call each one of us or we would have
Well,
call a
I
special
can,
meeting or
I'll
what?
double check with council, but I believe I can issue an enforcement order. Usually DEP recommends that for violations within the resource area, so that is what we're dealing with. And I can double check, but I'm pretty sure it would just have to be, if I issue it on my own with less than a quorum or by myself on acting on behalf of the commission, I think it would have to be ratified by the commission at the next scheduled public hearing. So you guys would be looking at it after the fact, after it's already been issued, unless you want to issue one now, just with the condition that, you know, obviously that we'll make sure we're sending it to the correct party. And, you know, if you wanted to vote on an enforcement order now to send it to the correct party with, you know, with whatever set conditions, then I think we can do that. Unless you want me to wait for council, and Tom, I can call you and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, let's wait. We want to send this letter to the right person.
Yeah, yeah. I believe you can send it to either or, but I'll make sure of that.
Yeah,
So if this is going to go to court, then yeah, make sure it's done correctly.
yeah, let's do that.
Probably goes to both, but
I think it might go to both, yeah. But I can address it to both parties. So,
Well, maybe
talk to
that's what we should do now then.
what do you
If we're
mean?
going to send it to both parties, I think that we can vote on it now.
Well, let's get town council to,
Oh, yeah, all right.
I mean, it's better to do.
Yeah,
okay. Tom, I'll give you a call tomorrow then.
okay, thanks.
All right, fun. Okay.
Hmm,
Great.
Enforcement orders are always fun.
Okay.
Okay, let's see.
Thank you, Mr. Urardi. See you next time.
He's gone, he left. Okay, so next, a discussion of a continuation of the discussion of the show cause hearing for assessor's parcel D11 55026 on Beechwood Street from July 6th. I hope that we're pretty much there finally.
Mhm.
Charlotte, would you help us?
Sure.
By introducing the changes that have been proposed, and hopefully we can.
Sure.
finish
Brad,
it.
would you like to pull this up? I guess I can start and feel free to afterwards. So you have Brad Holmes from ECR, Joanne Tosca, who's the property owner, and sorry, I'm just Rachel. Yep, Rachel Watsky from. I'm sorry, Rachel. What's the full name for your law firm?
It's Watsky Law.
Watsky Law. Thank you. Thank you. So Brad can explain this in more detail, but since our last discussion, we had some concerns with the needing to see more mitigation plantings in the 100-foot buffer. The current plan that we saw last time had 2-to-1 replacement of trees in the BVW and in the 50-foot buffer, along with 25 native shrubs to enhance the understory. And so the commission had wanted to see additional mitigation in the 100. I spoke with town council. Town council said we do have the general jurisdiction and enforcement abilities to, require and see mitigation in the 100-foot buffer for the violation. He did say that 2-to-1 mitigation was not feasible in this 100-foot buffer in his opinion. So he recommended 1-to-1, and I relayed that information to Joe, who worked with Brad to come up with an updated plan here. So I believe Brad has added 13 trees, Brad, or was it 12?
11.
11, I'm sorry, wrong. Sorry,
Right, so
I was
we,
wrong.
we,
Yep.
thank you, Charlotte. You're exactly correct. So we've added a 1-to-1 replacement of trees in the 50 to 100-foot buffer. The proposal remains the same as we presented before, 2-to-1 ratio of replacement in the BVW and the inner buffer zone, and an additional planting of native shrubs to include the other measures, conservation posts, wildlife habitat features, and can certainly go into it, but I think you're seen this quite a few times. And I think we were just about there at the last meeting as you discussed, and I think we've accomplished what the commission is looking for, and we're hoping that we can plan for a fall planting event.
Commissioners? If no one has any questions, I do. I'm wondering why some of these are 10-gallon and others are 5, Mr. Holmes.
Sure,
Why aren't they all
have a-
10? Or why aren't they all 5?
well, we're trying to go with a variety of different sizes. Trying to mimic a little bit more natural habitat. As we said before, this site is severely infested with boulder, so it's going to be very difficult to plant. So trying to bring a lot of big plants into the site is not going to be possible. So we're trying to go with a mix that can be hand carried into the site. We didn't want to go with just too small of trees, so we're trying to go with a mix of different heights.
So where are the 5s going and where are the 10s going?
We're locating the proposed trees throughout the area, as you see. It's all going to be directed by me or another professional with a landscape crew based on what's available for planting. I know that working in sites like this, you could designate a tree to be planted here, you put the shovel in the ground and you're hopping up and down on a boulder. So it's going to be something where you're going to be moving shovels around until you can find a appropriate place.
So I don't think you answered my question. Where are the 5s going and where are the 10s going?
They're all mixed in throughout the area.
So
We have
again,
a-
it begs the question of why you're doing mixed sizes. I mean, the issue here was to try to generate as much canopy in as short a time as possible. And all those 5-gallon trees are going to be laggards.
I think this is the 4th meeting that we presented the proposal to the commission. We've discussed the sizing and the placement of trees. We didn't talk about there being a change between 5 and 10. We do have smaller potted shrubs proposed. We're trying to mimic a natural environment so that the 5 and 10-gallon would be available from nurseries that we could obtain to walk into the site to be planted by hand. I hope that answers your question.
So you can plant those 10-gallon trees by hand?
Yes.
So again, begs the question, why are you putting any 5-gallon ones in? Why, you know, if the intent here was to recreate the canopy as quickly as possible, why are you putting some small trees in here?
The intent wasn't actually to restore the canopy as soon as possible. The intent was to restore the BVW in the inner buffer zone, more of mimicking a natural habitat. We kind of veered off during our meetings, and then we started looking at canopy. So we provided you with a canopy analysis. We're back in front of the commission to try to resolve this, and we're working to kind of locate trees within that area that would be areas that we identified in that red as open canopy. Mix of species allow us to kind of have a variety so that it looks more natural. And don't forget, we're also putting in 25 native shrubs to mix into that area. This area has, if you've been by there, it's 3 to 4 feet in height now. It's regenerated nicely through the growing season. We've had a good growing season this year with the rain, so we're adding into that. So I think this is a very supportive plan for what we're what has been done.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I mean, you have the whole property to work with. I don't understand why you clustered some of them, like, what's the red outline? Is that where the cutting occurred, or what does that represent? The thick red line?
Yes, that basically is the open canopy. If you remember from the previous
okay.
submittals, we did the drone analysis and we're able to kind of bring in that
Right.
that height
I got
ratio.
you. Well, I mean, you have the whole property, and I'm not an expert on this. I would lean towards the gardener and the arborist. But why are they so tight? I can't imagine they're like in the inner buffer zone that all those trees are gonna, thrive if they're planted so tightly. Can't you use the rest of the property and spread it out? I mean, I'd be in favor of that. I want the trees back and the canopy back, but I also want to maximize like the survivability of these plantings. Seems tight.
No, it's a large, it's a good size area. We're working with the commission to go with the 2-to-1 ratio for the BVW in a buffer. And if you remember, as I stated in my document, the 2-to-1 ratio is not a requirement of the commission for numbers.
No,
It's a
that's not my
requirement.
question. My question is why you're restricting yourself to this, to the red outlined area.
That is at the direction of the commission to try to kind of come up with an analysis of where the canopy was.
But you're not using half of it. I mean, you're not in
I-
half of
if
it.
if
I
I can-
understand. Like,
Sure, I'll address your question. We added trees to the 50 to the 100-foot buffer for our last meeting. We didn't include trees between the 50 and the 100 because what we felt was that the Conservation Commission has an inner buffer zone requirement. That's your 0 to 50. There are no performance standards between the 50 and the 100-foot buffer zone. So therefore, should someone want to come forward with a project in the future to propose work within the outer buffer zone, which would be a permissible activity in accordance with the state and Cohasset regulations, it would preclude someone from doing work if there was a restoration requirement requiring that the full 100-foot buffer zone was restored, so that a project would be looked at negatively because the commission would have required that area to be restored. So we didn't fight that with the commission. We've come back and proposed trees at a 1-to-1 ratio per the town council's recommendation between the 50 and the 100-foot buffer zone. Should we fully vegetate everything out to the 100-foot buffer zone? No, not in our opinion, because again, that would preclude us from coming forward with an application in the future and kind of taking away the rights of a property owner.
So in terms of the question of survivability of the tree plantings as tight as they are, is there anyone that's expert in that on your side that's weighing in on whether or not these are spaced out and properly, or
Sure.
we're gonna have you keep these trees alive for a certain amount of years, so it's in your best interest to make sure that they do so.
Sure, I'm a Massachusetts certified arborist, also a professional wetland scientist. I'll be involved during the planting project and working with the team. We'll be providing updates to the commission and there'll be reports following whatever the commission would like, but I'll be involved in that as a certified arborist and wetland
Okay. Well, it's good for me. I mean, it just looks like there's a whole lot of space there that doesn't have any plantings. And I understand that some of those are close to private property. They don't seem like they would pose a danger to any residential structures for many, many years. But if that's the way you want to go, that's fine. I'm happy with the additional trees. I appreciate that after 4 meetings, you've added some trees. And in terms of the 100-foot buffer, as Charlotte said, when trees are cut down without notification, then we do have authority to require replanting. So it's not a mitigation effort per se, but
Sure, and we understand. We've been working with the commission since the initial notice. Mr. Iantasa went out immediately, installed erosion controls, seeded the area. We put together a restoration preliminary plan that included the seed mix, stabilization activities. That was done immediately before any other notices, and we've been working with the commission at every meeting. So it's not like the last meeting where we're here to be adversarial. We're only working with the commission, and I think we've come up with a good plan.
Any further comments from the commissioners? Anyone in the audience, Charlotte, that's raised their hand?
I do not see anyone raising their hand. I don't see any questions posted.
Okay. So if we have nothing further to say about it, so what are we doing here? Do we lift the?
Yeah, we do have choices, but the preferred choice recommended by council was to keep the existing enforcement order, but we can vote to amend it with any additional conditions, like for monitoring or anything that we would want to see, reporting, how we want it reported. Do we want it just submitted to me administratively? Do they need to present to us any status updates? Brad has put in his ECR preparation restoration memo that they're looking for 75% success within 3 years. So I guess our amended enforcement order can, require any types of monitoring or reporting conditions and anything else that we want to see while we carry this out.
So Charlotte, do you think that Mr. Holmes' plan is consistent with what our normal conditions are when there's mitigation planting? Is it?
I think so. The work will be done by hand. There'll be no herbicides or any sort of fertilizers that will be used. And Brad, please interrupt me if I'm wrong, but there will be none of those materials or chemicals used to maintain the plants. Any plants that are found to be dead will be replaced in kind, which is another one of our standard conditions under an order of conditions. And then I guess for me, it would really depend on when do we want reports? Do we want oversight from me? I guess any additional, monitoring conditions.
Invasive species mitigation.
Yeah, and then I believe the invasives will be hand removed in the growing areas throughout the plan, the lifetime of the plan.
Okay, so it sounds like
knotweed.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, what was that, Chris?
Including Japanese knotweed.
I believe so. Yes, Brad. Will all invasives be removed by hand?
Yes, correct. And you're correct on the no fertilizers and no herbicide.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
So, so in other words, our standard conditions for this are similar to or exactly the same as what Mr. Holmes has proposed. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay, so I think that we can then keep this enforcement order in place. We're going to add our standard conditions for restoration. Does that must require a motion of some sort, Charlotte?
Yeah, so I would make a motion and vote to amend the existing enforcement order to add those standard conditions. And then the last sentence, well, second to last sentence in Brad's report says monitoring and reporting of restoration areas should follow directions of the commission. So I guess, do we want, what type of monitoring and reporting do we want to see? Because I think that should be a condition.
Mr. Holmes, what would you recommend to us that would be adequate for to have the greatest chances of success? How often does it need to be monitored, and explain why that timetable would be right for you?
Sure, I think that a completion report should be submitted to the commission after the initial planting event. I think that a yearly monitoring report should be submitted to the commission. Usually it's December 15th as far as the report, but the monitoring would have to be done, say, by October 15th, and then the report would follow by December 15th to give a little time. That's what we usually do for replication and restoration projects. We're flexible, but I think that it's going to be an ongoing monitoring, but as far as an annual report would be at the end of the growing season. So
Yeah.
whatever you would be comfortable with.
Yeah.
And, what's the
unless
75% success rate? What does that look like in numbers of trees that we were planting here?
So replication restoration projects, the state standard has that we maintain at least 75% plant survival after the number of growing seasons. So we usually have at least 2 or 3 growing seasons, and we have to document at least 75% plant survival. So that we're taking that state standard from the DEP wetland replacement regulations and bringing that into this buffer zone restoration area.
Charlotte, isn't our standard 3 years?
Yes, our standard condition is 3 full growing seasons that the plantings shall be maintained or replaced within 3 full growing seasons. So that's the same timeline that we have.
Okay, so I make a motion that we amend the enforcement order to proceed with the plan that's been submitted to us. And the duration of monitoring will be 3 years as per our standard conditions. Do I need to add anything?
Did we want to add the completion report to be submitted after the initial planting event by December 15th?
Yes.
And then yearly for monitoring reports, I think, Brad, was that by October 15th for 3
The
years?
monitoring should be done by October 15th, the report to follow no later than December 15th.
Okay, thank you. And then yearly monitoring reports to be submitted by 12/15? Was that it for the monitoring reports?
Yeah, that would work for us.
Sorry, I was trying to get the dates, but I couldn't write fast enough.
Well, I think the date was October 15th, wasn't it, Mr. Holmes?
For the monitoring, yes.
Yeah.
But as far as getting a report to the commission, usually we have December 15th.
Oh, okay, I see. So the monitoring would take place on October 15th and
Oh, okay.
Right, monitoring,
And the
correct. The
report
monitoring
would
would
be
be in the
submitted
growing
by-
season prior to October 15th, so we have good data. And then
Yeah.
the report to follow to the commission no later than
Thank you.
December 15th.
okay.
Okay.
All right.
And then, yeah, that can be the condition for the monitoring reports. So the completion report after the initial planting event to be submitted by 12/15, and then yearly monitoring reports for the next 3 years. The monitoring will be conducted no later than October 15th, and the report will be submitted to the commission no later than December 15th. And then do we just want those submitted to me, or do we want those presented to the commission?
Say that again.
As in, should the reports just be submitted to me and I just share them with
Yeah,
you guys, or do
yeah.
you guys want like a presentation?
No, I think that all of this should be here and throughout the whole process should be done administratively.
Okay.
Unless there's some deviation
Okay.
from our expectations, or there's a change in plan.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think the rest of it can be handled administratively.
Okay,
Good.
right.
So-
And we also wanted I mean, Brad says it in his plan, but we wanted the standard, like no herbicides, pesticides, et cetera, all work to be done by hand and proceed with the approved plan for the duration of the 3 years with achieving 75% success within that 3-year period.
Right. And,
Perfect.
and no mechanized equipment
Mhm.
within the 50-foot buffer
Or the BVW.
or the, yeah, obviously.
Yep.
The resource itself. Yeah,
Yep.
keep the
Okay,
tractors out of the resource.
okay.
All right,
All right. I think I have the 3 conditions.
okay.
Charlie, I have a question. How often are you expecting that Brad and his people will physically be on site monitoring the growth of invasives? And if you turn your back for 6 months on this site, you're gonna come back and you're gonna have a jungle on your hands. How often will his people, or do we expect his people will be actually on site and monitoring and eliminating the invasive, invasion?
It's a good question. I believe, Brad, you mentioned in your memo that it would be done during the monitoring events before October 15th. So would it only be once a year or?
Well, that's up to us as far as we're coming back to the commission with a yearly report on the health of the stat, the area. If we don't maintain it, and just leave it, lay fallow and it were to become a Japanese knotweed mess, that is more burden work for us. So we're definitely gonna be monitoring and working together to make sure this is a successful project. So you're gonna be looking at that yearly and, be reported with the commission. So we're not looking to create more work for ourselves.
Okay, so
I'm not sure if I heard an answer there, Charlotte. How often will you be on site monitoring the progress of invasives and the development? Is it once a month, 2 months? I don't feel very good about once every 6 months because I know how fast invasives can spread, particularly in the summertime if it's wet.
Sure, so we would be on site at least every season. So you'd be on site in the spring. And at that point, we'd be coordinating with Joe and his crew to say, okay, well, this is what we're finding. We'd be back in the summer and then we'd be doing our monitoring report in the fall. And during that time, we'd be coordinating with Joe and his landscape crew to make sure that the work is done. And I'd be overviewing the landscape crew to make sure that work is done. So at least, to answer your question, at least 3 times a year.
Okay, all right.
I would add one more condition, and that is prior notification of our agent. So if she has time.
Yep.
She can be out there to see what you guys are up to while it's going on,
Sure.
particularly during the removal of invasives.
yeah, and Brad, did you specify about 3 times a year? I don't think you did, but we can make that a condition, at least 3 times a year or more as designated by the wetlands professional and the agent, I guess. If that's
We didn't
appropriate.
specify, but I mean, that's part of our kind of our task to monitor and
typical,
report back to
yeah.
the commission.
Okay.
If you feel you need to, that's fine, but again, we're
I'd
gonna
like
be
to add
prepared
one
with that.
more condition, and since we've only done 1-to-1 in the 100, that we stipulate that there should be 100% survival of those trees, and if they're not surviving where they are clustered, then we replace.
You want 100% success in the 100-foot buffer or overall, Chris?
Yeah, for the 11 trees that were added in the 100.
Okay, so 100% success in the 100-foot buffer for the 11 trees?
Yeah.
But 75% overall for the
For the
50-foot
2-to-1 and the
BBW
50.
in the 2-to-1, okay. Okay,
So clearly, if we're under drought conditions, Mr. Holmes, you would probably want to check on those, especially those 5-gallon trees, to make sure that they're getting sufficient water to survive.
Right, we're planning on planting in October. That's the best success for planting.
Right.
And we had really good success with fall planting.
And then July and August, I would think if we have a summer like we did last summer, you probably need to be out there and be ready to water now and then, I would think.
For sure, we're not looking to redo it,
Yeah,
so we'll have to maintain that.
good. Okay.
Yeah, so I think, so it sounds like, sorry, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, you talk about you watering. Who's gonna be doing this work? Is it the owner's landscaping crews or is it your people? Who's actually gonna be out there taking care of these fledgling little plants? All right, it sounds to me like we're referring to a number of different groups here doing various responsibilities.
I believe Joe has a landscape contractor that I'll be coordinating with.
Okay. And there's water on site?
There isn't, but the owner lives nearby and we can get water as we need to.
I guess so, yeah, okay. I would be happier if there was some sort of a permanent water outlet, well, whatever may be on site to provide the water for this, but it's the owner's prerogative, but we have to make sure we're not being too picky in terms of the quantity of water, because if a drought comes about, you'll need substantial quantities of water here, which I assume will come out of his Cohasset water bill.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll bucket it out of the BVW. That's a joke, just kidding.
Make sure there's no tadpoles in those buckets.
Okay,
Okay, so my motion's gotten a little bit muddled here.
Yep, sorry.
Further conversation, so let's, Charlotte, do you think you can state succinctly what we're actually, what the motion, the way the motion stands now?
yeah, tough.
Yes, so
You
I
don't
guess,
have to, you don't have to run through our standard conditions.
yeah, okay. So
Just-
basically you would vote, Tom, you can make a motion to amend the existing enforcement order with the following conditions: that the work is allowed to proceed per the approved plan and the duration specified within the approved plan of 3 years, and that no mechanized equipment within the BVW or 50-foot buffer will be allowed. Monitoring completion report will be received after the initial planting event by 12/15. And monitoring reports will be submitted yearly. Monitoring events will be done no later than October 15th, and the report will be submitted to the agent no later than 12/15 of each year, and that the agent will be notified prior to any monitoring activity site visits. And then for within the 100-foot buffer with the 1-to-1 replacement of trees, 100% success shall be obtained. 75% success within the 50-foot buffer in BVW with the 2-to-1 replacement as required per plan. And then invasive monitoring and removal of at least 3 times a year between spring and fall, or more if designated by the professional wetland scientist or the agent.
So if I were a trained actor, I'd want a script and some time to practice that.
Yep. Sorry, you can say to amend the EO with the conditions that I just listed, if you're okay with that.
I'm really happy to do that. So I.
Well done.
So moved.
I move to amend the order of conditions, wait a minute, the
Enforcement
order as per the soliloquy that Charlotte Bechtel has just delivered to us.
Second,
Roll call vote. Bill Ashton,
Bill Ashton, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Yes to the soliloquy of Charlotte, well done.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This passes 6-0-0.
And then, Tom, we should vote
And
to
a,
keep the
yes.
variance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to issue a variance for work within the 50.
Second,
Another roll call vote. Bill Ashton,
Bill Ashton, aye.
Eric Eisenhower,
Eric Eisner, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Chris McFarland,
Chris McFarland, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That passes 6-0-0.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of
Thank
your
you,
night.
guys.
Thank you.
Have a good
Good
night.
night. Thank you.
Night.
Okay. Where are we? Let's see here.
Did someone say good night? I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's a little, it's too early
Sorry.
for you to go to bed, Eric. It's just not.
I gotta get going. I got a birthday celebration going downstairs. Come on.
What, is it your birthday?
Absolutely. 76.
76.
happy
Well,
birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. The party's waiting for me. I gotta get
Oh, they
going.
are. Okay, well,
Aw.
I'm gonna speed up here.
Okay.
So our last show cause hearing is for 10 Ocean Ledge Drive for failure of the show cause hearing 10 Ocean Ledge Drive for what shall we call it? Illegal disposal of building materials in the town storm drain?
Ugh.
Illicit discharging?
Illicit discharging? That sounds good.
Yeah, so we have Jed Hannon here from Atlantic Coast Engineering, and Jed, I don't see Ryan on the phone. Up, Adam Brodsky is raising his hand. Okay, so I will promote him. I don't know if Ryan is calling in, but Adam, I guess maybe can confirm. Oh, I see. Okay, I think I found him. Ryan, I think I'm promoting you under Leah's iPad. I don't know if that's his daughter, wife. Ryan, is that you? Can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay, yep, so we have Ryan Connolly, who's the contractor for 10 Ocean Ledge, and this is in regards to stormwater permit 21-11 for the record, and then Jed Hannon is here from Atlantic Coast Engineering, and Adam Brodsky is here from, oh my God, DTM Law. This stormwater permit is close to the filing of a certificate of compliance. I was at the site on July 5th after previously talking with Jed and Ryan about basically working towards a COC. I went to the site and I did see 2 or 3 landscaping crew on the site. There was a wheelbarrow that was placed over a catch basin at the bottom of the driveway. And the landscaping crew were using buckets of water to basically flush the dirty water into the catch basin. So I'd called Ryan to the site and let him know that this wasn't allowed under the stormwater permit. And the commission had wanted to see a show cause hearing for this. And so since then, Jed and Ryan and his team had worked with Rosano Davis, and Rosano Davis went out to the site and pumped 10 surrounding catch basins to remove any sediment or illicit discharge material in those catch basins. And they have since cleaned those out and installed silt sacks at the 2 catch basins just below the new driveway that was just paved. And they sent me the invoice, I believe, last week. So that work has since been done. The applicant and the engineer are working towards a COC request for the permitted work. But I guess there were other concerns as well that were received from butters around the same time in terms of erosion and sedimentation leaving the site.
Charlotte?
Yeah.
I think we'll cover that with the COC.
Yeah, we put erosion and discharging in the show cause hearing. So we can just focus on the discharging if that's what you prefer.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
the other issue is going to be more complex.
Okay. Okay. But yeah, I guess that's my updates. I guess Jed and Ryan or Adam, do you have anything else to add before the commission weighs in?
Oh, thank you. Good evening. This is Adam Brodsky, and I represent the 792 Jerusalem Road Realty Trust. Ryan Connolly is a principal and Jed Hannon is our engineer. And we apologize to the commission that we're wasting your time this evening, particularly Mr. Eisenhower's birthday, to address this. This was an errant landscaping subcontractor who should not have been doing what they did. And so we've taken steps to remedy it, and hopefully that will resolve the issue from the commission's perspective.
Can anybody clarify what actually was dumped into the storm drain? It looks like it might have been a partially used wheelbarrow full of cement.
Chair Bell, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't believe it was. I think they were just washing it out. Like I had to leave early that day, so I didn't know that was happening. But I'll take the blame. It shouldn't have happened, and I'm sorry it did.
Were they using cement for the masonry?
There was really no masonry going on at the time.
Looking at masonry, looking at rocks. They didn't use mortar or cement?
Well, they did use mortar to mortar the cobblestones in place, but I don't know when that picture was taken, what time, so I don't really know.
This was July 5th in the afternoon, Ryan, and I'd called you and we looked at it on site. I didn't see the physical dumping. This is what I saw when I pulled up to the site, and I saw them using the water buckets to, wash it down the catch basin.
I don't know. It seems like, they took action, which I appreciate, but it seems more like a DPW or water department type thing that I would be, if I were them, I would want to have it like actually looked at to see if there was mortar poured down there. If you do it after the fact, I don't know. I think I'd want to scope it and see if it was actually I don't know if that's outside of our jurisdiction or what, but
yeah, like I said, Rosanna was called to the site. They vacked it all out. There was no concrete shown in that catch basin. Just sediment, sand. That's all.
Well, I've been on the wrong end of a wheelbarrow like that, full of cement. And it looks to me like at one point or another, cement was mixed in it. And we only know about this one incident. We only witnessed one incident. I don't think it's a huge leap to think that it might have happened more than once. And I think to be comfortable here, we should video that storm drain. Because if cement has been, unused cement has been washed down that, it's possible that it's constricting flow somewhere, maybe down the bottom of the hill where it flattens out. So I would recommend, just like Chris McIntyre, that they run a video down this all the way to where it sees daylight again. We want to be sure that this storm drain is at capacity. And anybody that was around on Saturday, the 29th, knows well that we don't want to have any obstructions in the storm drains on this street.
Chair Bell, this is Adam Brodsky speaking. Yeah. There's no evidence that concrete was placed down this. They were vacked out, visually inspected. If you want a visual inspection report, we're happy to provide that. There are additional sources of stormwater from that entire neighborhood. We don't contribute, we're not the sole contributor to the system to suggest that somehow we're responsible for the entire system based upon conjecture is not fair. So my suggestion is we're happy to open the grate, do another visual inspection. I presume that Rosanna Davis would have called out any visual obstructions, but to require us to video or scope a system that's has contribution from multiple sources, because perhaps based upon conjecture that some mortar may have gone down the system, I think is beyond the pale.
Well, what do they do with their unused cement?
We have no idea whether we're using cement on that day. Again, this is all conjecture. You see a photograph of rocks. We have no idea what work was being done this time. It could very well be that is a wheelbarrow that has been used historically for cement, but was not used for cement on this.
Yeah, but the vac work was done without without us knowing, so we had no opportunity to make the visual assessment of what was taken out of there.
No,
So I don't
we-
think
we
it's
will-
unfair. I don't think it's unfair for us to ask for some sort of photographs of what was in that base, or what's in that basin now, or
Sure,
or
we're
any
happy to
evidence.
pull the grates, take photographs and provide you the evidence. But to
Okay.
require that we incur
Take
the
it.
cost to video that system, again, I think is unreasonable.
Well, fine, we'll take, I think we'll take some, some sort of, some video or photographic evidence. I don't know if the whole length of it is, I don't know where it goes, how far it is, but,
Yeah, I mean, you guys would have been getting calls from the church getting flooded out on that last rainstorm if these things weren't working properly. I mean, you should see the rain. It's crazy how these things work. They working great, you know?
So thank you, Mr. McIntyre. We're happy to take you up on your suggestion. We will provide that additional information to the commission.
If it helps to, I'm happy to go out to the site when they pull the grates and I can take a look as well.
Thank you, Ms. Bechtel.
You want to back up, Charlotte, to one of the other pictures?
Trying to think, which
Yeah.
one?
I just keep
The other one? This one?
That one, yeah.
This is the catch basin that's a little bit further down on the, I'm forgetting the name of the private way, but this is the one that's down gradient of the catch basin you just saw.
Right, that's Cemetery Road. And if I recall.
Cemetery Road, thank you.
We had erosion during one of
Cemetery.
those large storms.
Mhm.
And the landscapers were in the process of hydroseeding. They had removed portions of the erosion controls, and those erosion controls didn't get replaced before that storm hit. So we had some erosion from the rear of the yard. It went down the neighbor's driveway and ended up there. I should also note that there's erosion on the neighbor's property. You can see the erosion on the right-hand side of the driveway, not only from our water, but from the neighbor's water from the top of that hill. This is a historic condition, but we certainly contributed to that. And so again, what we ended up doing was re-stabilize the slope with blankets at the rear of our site, reinforced and restored all of the erosion controls. And in fact, Ryan put new sod along our side of that driveway together with a riprap trench to make sure that our side of that property is completely stabilized. And again, we cleaned out the catch basin to remove that material. So we're responsible for some of that material, Chair Bell. We're not responsible for all of it. And if you went out there and took a look at the neighbor's property, particularly the right-hand side of the driveway, you just see where water coming down the driveway, unaffiliated with us, and has been coming down there for years, has removed sediment down there. So it's.
I've been out there, I've seen it.
Yeah. So we've done the best we can do to address the problem that we caused and again to remedy it.
Actually, we have some video of this, but we'll talk
Yep.
about it when the COC comes up.
Mr. Chair, we also have someone in the audience raising their hand. Do we want to promote them to speak or encourage them to use the Q&A
Yes.
feature or
Yes.
promote them to
please.
speak? Okay. Hi, Josh. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Hi, Charlotte. This is Josh McAwee. We live at 796 Jerusalem Road. We are that neighbor, the abutter, that does have some erosion on that other side. So I just did want to mention that the erosion on that other side, yes, we have water that comes down the other side of that driveway, which is between the two properties. The water that comes down that side of the driveway does not go into that catch basin. It actually goes down the hillside next to that, which we've seen and we have provided video of previously. So those are available to you. And we actually have provided, actually very recently, we put a very similar riprap sort of catch basin on that side to prevent and stop the erosion on our side as well, which was not going into those catch basins. But, you know, we do want to keep our driveway from eroding any further. So just wanted to provide that to the commission here as some information.
Well, we'll have a further discussion of the stormwater conditions at the COC when that's submitted. It's a fairly complex issue. I think dealing with the storm drain and the illicit discharge is what we're really focused on tonight. Yes, it indeed is conjecture that they might have dumped more than one wheelbarrow down there. We only witnessed one. I don't think it's a flight of fancy, Mr. Brodsky, that they might have dumped more.
Or Mr. Chairman Bell,
We have
no
way of-
water going down. So
And
you
we have no way of
recognize
proving
all of
that.
those possibilities.
We have no way of proving that. You're right. But we're suspicious, let's say.
Yes, sir. Well, we understand that. That's why we're happy to pull the grades, have them inspected, and provide photographic evidence to the commission.
Did we want to continue the show cause hearing to August 24th until we receive the photographic evidence? And I can go out there as well and take a look, and we'll just bring back what we find. And
Yeah, I think that's.
I can't speak for Ryan and Jed and Adam, but I do know that they are close on working on a COC. So we may potentially be able to evaluate that at the next meeting as well, but I will defer to them. I was also at the site today, so I have seen the updated conditions, which I'm happy to go over in more detail next time. Sounds like that's what we want to do.
Yeah, I'm
Thanks.
guessing the water department is aware of this as well, Charlotte, right?
That is a good question. Ryan, did you work with or call DPW or the water department at all when Rosano Davis went out there?
It would be DPW, wouldn't it?
The water,
Yeah, DPW. The water
DPW.
department wouldn't be-
they're non-responsive.
Okay.
So I took it upon myself to mitigate the situation.
Okay.
And just for a point of information, Cemetery Road is a private way. It's not a public way.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to continue this until August 24th. Is that correct, Charlotte? Is that?
Yes, that's our next meeting. Is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Good night.
So we're down to our certification of compliance for stormwater permit 1929 at 31 Deep Run.
Yes, and I apologize. I was supposed to text the engineer. Let me see if she's able to join, but I will definitely get started to try and move this along.
Okay.
Yep. All right, I just texted her. Hopefully she can jump on. But so this was a stormwater permit 19-29. This was for new house construction. So I will pull up the approved plan and I'll go over some of the deviations that I saw on site and that some of them that the engineer also noted. Sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, so this is the approved plan. So I will pull that up. I don't know if this refreshes anyone's memory for those who are there in 2019. So the house was built per plan. The stormwater systems were mostly built per plan. The engineer had submitted a COC request listing a couple deviations. So she wrote as-built impervious surface increased by 44 square feet from the 9,161 approved. However, we had a previous minor modification to the plan where the original proposed impervious surface was 9,408 square feet. So there was a reduction in an administrative approval. So it's a slight increase from that administrative change. It was technically with the patio. The patio was made to be slightly larger, and I'll show you the as-built. But she had, the engineer had conservatively measured the pervious patio as impervious in her calculation. So that's what she's noting here. She said a portion of the gravel swale, which is what you can see here, and it goes all the way up to here. She said that it was behind the pool house. It was modified to an 8-inch pipe backfilled with crushed stone due to the proximity of the ledge area. So there is a large ledge outcrop right here that you can't see on the approved plan, but they had piped it instead of just doing a swale to kind of help with channeling it to deal with that ledge outcrop. And then a portion of the existing gravel driveway, which you can see here, this was supposed to be shifted and moved closer to the house. They had retained a portion of the gravel driveway and improved with crushed stone. So I'll show you guys the as-built for that as well. She did do an as-built drainage analysis and confirmed that the stormwater BMPs will reduce peak rate and volume and runoff from the offsite, which is an improvement from the existing conditions. There were a couple other deviations that I had noted in my review of the as-built and on-site. The proposed rain garden that you see here on the left-hand side is slightly smaller. So this is the approved design. And let me pull up the as-built. So this was, oops, sorry. This is what the as-built rain garden looks like. So it was supposed to come a little
You're
bit
not
down.
sharing? Oh, now you are.
Yep. So sorry, it was supposed to come down a little bit closer to this southerly ledge outcrop. So it's a little bit smaller. Deb did do her calculations based off of this modification. And she also noted that the roof drain connections from the southern side of the house are now piped to the rain garden. That was not on the approved design. But given the increase in the coverage, it still was going to drain in this general direction anyway, given the grading on the site. So in talking to the engineer, she said whether or not it's piped directly to the rain garden or if it had just kind of slowly, traveled down there, and that it would have still been in the same direction. So there wasn't a change in the runoff direction here. And that there's a couple other minor changes that I'll just note on the approved plan. So the landscaping beds that were proposed around the pool weren't done, but they did plant other plantings like arborvitae and shrubs all around the property. So these two planting areas right here were.
Can we go back to the rain garden for a sec?
Yeah.
So if they shrank it
Mhm.
and added a direct runoff to it, what's the surrounding area like? I don't see the grades after the
Yeah,
property
so
line
this
then.
is, the rain garden was built, like the bottom of the rain garden was built per plan, and the increase in elevation was built per plan. It was just the size of it. It was supposed to go down closer to the sledge outcrop, and it's just a tad smaller. And then the roof drain connection.
Charlotte,
Sorry.
Do we know how much smaller, what the volume difference is?
I do not. I can see if Deb is able to jump on the call.
No,
But
don't say, no, she's not, if she's not here, she's not here.
yeah, it was
You're-
partially
You're
my
being
fault for
much
not-
too accommodating. It's, your
Yeah, I was
job is
supposed to
in,
text
your
her.
job is enforcement. It's not,
Yeah.
it's not
It is.
accommodation.
Yep. No,
But-
it's
but-
smaller. I don't have the confirmed volume.
But Chris, if Charlotte had not notified her, it's not accommodation.
You didn't know, she didn't know she was going to be on tonight?
No, she knew. She's just on another meeting in Braintree right now.
Oh, I misunderstood you.
Oh,
Charlotte.
No, sorry, I was supposed to text her, but I just texted her now.
Oh, I see.
But
So she
she
had a
did want to explain the changes. Yeah, so I don't know the exact volume of the change, but she did evaluate it and put it in for her as-built calculations that she submitted with the COC request, including the two roof drain connections. Because she said the proposed drainage was supposed to all go into that rain garden anyway, including the roof runoff from that area. So pretty much you're just kind of, I guess, speeding up the runoff a little bit in that area, but her calculations still showed that the volume and the rate was still less than existing conditions. And there were other minor deviations. I don't know if you guys want me to go through those, but mostly they're more landscaping deviations, unless we just care about the rain garden change.
Is there a buffer here?
No.
So as long as the rates and discharge are still within spec, then I don't think we're prepared to compare these two volumes and make a judgment whether it's been impaired or not. Ultimately, it has to go back through HydroCAD and the engineer has told us that she's done that and it's still within the bounds of our regulations.
What's next to her? I'm just looking at to the
The
plan
next- this
north,
property?
plan south, plan north, ledge. What's over there?
Sorry, the northern side? The northern side is this side, the right side.
No, I'm saying plan north and plan south is ledge, and so what's
Oh, right.
where would the water run out?
So, the
To the neighbor, or
swale, it would
what's
come
next to
through
her? What's to the plan left?
left, this area here, the budding property.
Yeah. That's
I can't tell from the existing. Let me go to the approved plan and see if I can tell. Can see a little bit of grading past. So it looks like it's,
There's a house over there. You can see it now.
yeah. It looks like the grading slightly increases. It goes from the bottom of the rain garden was 50 and it's going up to 54 to the abutting property.
Yeah. I don't know. It just
is
seems like
slightly
the
up
rain
now.
garden's in a spot where they couldn't put it because they hit ledge. That's probably why it's small, and so it's probably not going to function.
Mhm.
It's going to be a pool, and it's run out. But
Yeah, so the proposed rain garden was supposed to go down here closer to this ledge outcrop below the rain garden. So it was always supposed to be backed up against this northern one, but it was supposed to go down a little bit closer to this larger ledge outcrop right here. So it was just kind of cut short, I guess.
do we require test pits for rain gardens ever?
I believe so. Tom, I think
Yeah,
we,
yeah,
because you have to see if you have the soils to dig down.
definitely.
All right. Well, if we did a test pit, then I don't know. Not gonna hold it up.
Well, we don't know whether it was required in 2019 when this order of conditions was issued.
Right.
We only started doing that in the last couple of years where we wanted the test pits where a stormwater system was being put in, or infiltration chambers or rain gardens or whatever.
Mhm.
So it's
It could potentially be in your stormwater report, but I'm not seeing it on the site plan and I don't see it marked here. Usually there's like a rectangle showing a test pit with, it's like TP1 or whatever, and then you see the test pit data in a column somewhere on the plan or potentially in their stormwater report. But at least with the design, the bottom of the rain garden was built per plan. So it was at 50.5.
Can you go back to the as-built,
Mhm.
please? Can you go up on the page, please?
Mhm.
She's here, by the way.
Oh, great. Let me just promote her real quick. Thank you, Deb.
Can you go back?
Hi, Deb. Can you hear us?
Yep, slowly getting my microphone and video on here.
Awesome. Yeah, thank
So,
you, Deb. So we were just going through the change in the rain garden size and the roof drain connections. Can you kind of walk us through that? And I believe it was included in your as-built calculations. We were
That
wondering
is-
what the volume change was to the rain garden.
Volume change, I think it was couple hundred square feet of a change, and it was more in the lower. So there was a slight loss in storage volume. So that's why I ran the new numbers to ensure that we were still meeting preconditions.
well, you you stated a volume in square feet, not cubic feet.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have oh, actually, let me just check to see if I have the stormwater capacity calcs in front of me. I do not, but what I remember is the lower, so elevation 50.5 and 51 were the ones that had the lower square footage. So when I calc out the volume, I use those square footages to calc the volume. So those were the two elevations that had less area in the proposed. Proposed versus as-built. So that's why we ran the new stormwater numbers. If you don't mind giving me 30 seconds, I can grab that report and I can pull the exact number for you if you'd like.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you.
Charlotte, while she's doing that, would you go up on the page, please?
Oh, you're gonna tell me?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you.
I'll call you.
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Okay.
My apologies for that. I only have the, let's see, okay, so the existing conditions volume cubic feet, this is for the, at the discharge, so it's, the overall site was increased by approximately, that's 300 cubic feet. And that's for the peak volumes for the whole site in the new stormwater analysis.
So wait a minute, we heard that the rain garden is smaller, and you just said that it increased by 300 feet, 300 cubic feet? I don't follow what.
So yeah, I apologize. I'm going off of the table that we provided, which is the summary of the cubic feet. So that would be the loss, even though we're still less than pre-existing conditions. We had a slight increase in volume coming off the site due to the fact that the stormwater basin is slightly smaller as an as-built condition, but we still meet the existing volume.
Okay.
I know I'm talking, I'm speaking the overall peak volume flowing off the site versus I do not have the actual loss in volume specific to this rain garden at my fingertips right at the moment.
I guess the really what the only thing we really care about is you're still underneath, equal to or underneath the original conditions.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
It sounds like you are. So I guess the size of the rain garden is not all that relevant. So long as you meet the numbers for discharge.
Well, and the
peak flow.
No, the direction of flow.
Oh,
that you know.
Yeah.
If it's less, but it's all going off one side, then it's an issue.
Yes.
So we are still meeting the existing conditions, both
Right.
peak rate and volume with the as-built condition.
Was there a test pit on this?
For the taxing my memory, I don't recall whether we did or we didn't with the design.
I didn't see it
I
on
would-
the original plan, Deb, but I might be able to, maybe Meryl put it in the report, but I didn't see it on the approved plan. I don't know if that's your standard practice to just put them on the plan, but I didn't see one for the approved plan.
Yeah, it is standard practice to show it on the approved
Yeah.
plan. So if it's not there, I would have to guess that we were not asked
Okay.
to have one done.
Gotcha. Yeah, sorry, I don't see it on the original plan. You have a bunch of details definitely for everything else, just not for the test pit from what I can see.
Mm.
So Deb,
Yeah.
the adjacent property at 39 is at a higher elevation than 31? Is that correct?
Yes.
So none of this runoff is going
Yeah.
south into the neighbor's yard. It looks, when I can see, it looks like it.
Both properties on the entire site flows to the rear behind the
Yeah.
to the rear property line.
Yeah, okay.
It's helpful.
Any further questions?
No.
Okay, with that, then I'll make a motion that we approve this certification of completion.
Compliance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
That was quick. Okay, so we're gonna have a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
is Eric still with us?
He's there, yep, but he's
Eric.
muted. Give us a thumbs up, Eric, or a thumbs down. Thank you.
Okay.
No,
Where am I? Oh, Chris McIntyre
Aye.
and Chris McFarland,
Aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This passes 6-0-0.
Awesome. Thank you, Deb. Sorry I had to hot
Thank
meetings.
you.
No, thank you so much. I appreciate you accommodating me.
All right, thanks, Deb. Have a good one.
That's
Yep,
the
you
same-
too.
That's the same word I used.
Yep, copying your words.
Okay,
All right.
Ever accommodate.
Is the
That
cake
is
done
it
yet, Eric?
for-
I'm thinking about running down.
what's that?
I was asking Eric if the cake's gone yet. I'm thinking about running down the
No,
hill.
no, it's more the rum punch.
Oh, we're
better.
driving down. We're not running, we're driving. Okay, so Charlotte,
Reorganization of commission in terms of liaison appointments. Did we want to do that? I think we have everyone now.
we do.
So, I think I've explained this before, but we do have two. We have CPC and Open Space Committee. We also, appoint Turkey Hill. It's just not on the town's list. We just do it. So those are our two liaison appointments. If we want commissioners to attend any other committees or boards, like that's totally fine. It's just if we wanted a liaison for any specific other board, we would have to go through select board to ask that. That's how it was explained to me. So did we want to vote on appointing a liaison to CPC and OSC?
Yeah, let's take care of that first.
Get out of the way.
And then I have an idea about how we might deal with the other boards.
Okay.
So we're looking for volunteers here. Who?
I am more than willing to continue on the CPC if
Okay, great.
everyone agrees.
Do we need a vote on that, Charlotte, or can we just,
I think you do, yeah.
okay,
I'll make a motion to nominate Eric to the CPC liaison.
I'll second it.
Second.
Okay,
Yeah.
there we go. So we're
Third.
good now. Roll call vote, Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Eric Eisenhower, can you vote it for yourself?
No, you can't
Yes,
vote.
abstain.
Kathy
Right.
Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, nay. No, I'm just kidding.
What a guy. What a guy. Chris, what did
Watch
I
out,
do
you
to
might
you?
end up having to do it yourself, Chris.
Aye.
Chris McFarland,
Aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That vote passes 5-0-1.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So the next one then is, what do we got here, Charlotte?
Open Space Committee,
Open Space. Who's been doing that?
Chris McIntyre.
Oh, okay.
You like it, Chris?
I nominate Chris McIntyre to continue.
Second.
Space, okay.
Second.
Vote, Will Ashton,
Will Ash and I.
Eric Eisenhower,
Aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McFarland,
Aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That passes 5-0-1. So are we going to stay with, I guess we don't have to vote, Kathy, if you want to stay, keep an eye on those people over at Turkey Hill. It's not an
Yes.
official thing, so.
Yep, happy to do it unless somebody really wants to do it.
Oh, you've
I
been
mean,
doing,
I'm happy to do it. I'm just saying
you've
somebody.
been doing a great
One
job.
meeting a year, so very
Yeah,
low
I can-
commitment.
You've been doing a
perfect.
great job.
Yep.
So
All
I'm-
right.
Sure, no problem.
I have a proposal for the other ones, and I think we could delegate commissioners who were obviously they'd have to volunteer to attend other board and committee meetings, but only by staying up to date with the agenda of the Board of Selectmen, the ZBA, and Planning Board, and only attend obviously as a citizen, not as a liaison, and only for those issues that would come before one of those or any of those three boards that have some direct relevance to what we're doing. So it's just more or less keeping an eye on the agendas every 2 weeks of these three boards, and if there's something coming up, attend the meeting. You don't have to attend the whole meeting. You would just listen in on discussion that related to anything that might impact us in any way, and then report back to us. Seems like an easy job, right?
Great idea.
Yeah. So Tom, I just want to bring up a point that in the past, in the however many years Eric and I have been here, 7 years, whatever, there were actually appointments of liaison to 5 or 6 different committees.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, I'm concerned for the commission that little by little, someone is whittling away at the authority of this commission. I'm very happy to see that we have new members. I brought up the point that in the past, members were vetted through the commission before the select board voted on them, and somehow this year that changed. When Charlotte was hired, it's right in our bylaws that actually the commission would appoint a agent, and now we're told that that's not the case. The Conservation Commission has always been a separate entity that kind of made its own rules so that there was no conflict with some other agenda going on by town hall or select board or everything else. So I just want to bring it up as a point that, there was a liaison to the Harbor Commission, there was a liaison to the
Everything.
yeah, there were quite a few. Well, now they've gotten rid of the cemeteries committee. They've gotten rid of the
Veterans.
the veterans and the memorial commission. The city is the town is just whittling away, and if it wasn't for the state requiring there be a conservation commission, I think they'd whittle us away too. So I think we just have to be very cautious of that. And I like your idea, but I'm just saying,
think
I'm
you
not
need to
sure-
run for select board, Chris. I think that's.
Oh,
the better
don't,
choice.
yeah, don't even.
Come on. I've
No.
voted.
I've aged out. I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Protect us.
Well, how would you propose that we reestablish our
Prominent.
authority?
We need to do,
I don't know, but I think that,
I think it might be worth having a conversation, maybe Tom and maybe Chris, we can, maybe try to talk to town manager, because you guys know I'm just the messenger. So I bothered town manager all the time with these questions, and I'm just giving you guys the answers that I'm told.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm happy to try and see if there's something that we can just chat about of these are the committees that we're interested in. And we're curious to see if we can get an elected liaison position, because I think Harbor Committee is important. I'm not sure about any others, but it might be worth the question. So at least we can have that face-to-face conversation rather than me playing telephone.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing that, Charlotte. I was going to contact Chris Senior and
Okay.
as new chairman, have a
Okay.
meeting with him. But I would greatly appreciate your Chris McFarland, your partnering with me on this.
well,
Passing the
I'm not
torch and-
sure, I'm not sure if my partnering with you is a positive or a negative.
Oh, yeah.
I think it'd be a
Um,
good thing.
I've
I think
butted,
it's a
I've
good-
butted heads in that office more than once, so I'm not sure. Eric
Well-
might be a better,
Now that we have numbers, we should all show up.
Oh, God, no.
No, the dog would bite us.
Show up with pitchforks, please no.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
I work there, guys. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely worth a question. I mean, Tom, if you're comfortable emailing
Yeah.
Chris
Yeah,
Senior and CCing me, and then do we want to have a partner? So Chris McIntyre perhaps, since Chris, you're the new vice chair, or do you want to just do share to town manager?
well, I think Chris McFarland has a long history now,
Yeah.
a longer history than at least me with the
Okay.
commission, and I think your understanding of the issues, Chris, is
Yeah.
is really worth having in that meeting.
I will certainly
Okay.
second. I second that, Chris.
Yeah, so I
I'll
guess,
just- I'll lurk.
We
I'll
need your
just
input,
lurk in the
Chris.
background.
Tom, did you want to maybe send an email with just me and Chris McFarland copied? Just so we can avoid open meeting law stuff potentially, but yeah, I think it might be good to just send that email with the two of us and we'll figure it out, and seeing if there's a conversation that we can have. Because if we do have to go to select board, through select board to appoint liaisons, like, I guess that's how it has to be done unless we hear differently. But at least with Harbor Committee, we awkwardly found out last year or 2 years ago that Tom, when you showed up to the meeting, we didn't have a liaison officially. But
Well, it wasn't them that told me. They thought that I was the liaison.
they thought you did? Oh, okay, so
was-
it was the town who told you?
Yeah, it was the town clerk that told me
Oh, okay,
that there is no liaison position.
weird, okay.
And I can't remember how that actually came
Well, the
up.
Sandy Beach is another one, which I think we should definitely have.
Yeah, you're right.
You're gonna love that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, we broke some ground this year.
I think
And-
they're more of a
and-
private meeting entity though, so I don't know if they're like an affiliated town.
It can't be
Or-
because it's not private property. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, Sandy Beach Association
beach
owns
is.
the beach, not the parking lot. So the parking lot is owned by the town. But Sandy Beach Association is a private entity that owns the
Yeah.
beach.
Yeah.
It's really
But
weird.
It's still under the jurisdiction of,
Oh, yeah. No, it's definitely still in our jurisdiction. I'm just saying, I don't think SBA is a town board. I
okay,
think
so if the
it's all-
town is working on the beach,
True. Mhm.
right? I mean.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's a good point. Yeah. I mean, the town DPW does work with SBA to obviously manage the joint
Right.
property anyway. So, yeah.
Well, they take care of the parking lot. Do they actually do anything on the beach? I don't think so.
They rake up with the seaweed. Who?
Yeah.
No. That's Sandy
who's
Beach
heavy-
Association.
Sandy Beach does that. So the town just sweeps the parking lot and the other thing that they did a while ago. And they dump the sand on the beach, and then Sandy Beach Association takes care of all the beach, actual work on the sand beach.
So that's not DPW when their equipment is on the beach, no?
No, that's
it's a
hired
private
by, they
contractor.
hire, I think IREA, I think
Yeah.
to do the combing of the beach. Yeah.
So the problem, I guess, there is that they don't have public meetings.
I think they still have to, I'll double check on that. They definitely do have meetings. I think they should be publicly advertised, but I don't know since they're a private entity. I'm not sure. They do have Zoom meetings though. I just don't know how often they meet, but we can get more information from that.
Yeah,
We
they
can
may
maybe,
not-
we
they
can, maybe
may
we can
not-
pitch that to the town, Tom, because, you know.
They're in
the-
our, they're definitely within our jurisdiction.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and that it's becoming a little bit more of a hot topic, I think,
Yeah.
with the seaweed and
Global warming, you know, a rising tide and all that. You know,
Yeah.
I
Plovers.
one way to learn a lot about what's going on in Sandy Beach is to make a donation of $10. Once you make a donation, you're on all the mailing lists and emails and everything else, which may sound fatuous, but it's not a bad idea. Just getting, you know, joining the organization as a starter. At least you get information as to what's going on, so,
sounds like we have a volunteer.
no. I'm your CPC guy until the end of the CPC, maybe sooner than later.
Yeah. Okay, so let's consider the possibility of creating official liaisons, but also if that doesn't work out or we don't want to go to attend the entire meeting necessarily.
Right.
We could do it more on this sort of ad hoc basis where somebody's in charge of keeping track of the agenda of at least these three boards, Board of Selectmen, ZBA, and Planning Board, and attend informally when there's something before them that.
I think it's a great idea. Yeah, Tom, I was told by a member of the select board that one of the background issues here is that the town has such a hard time finding people to populate these commissions, that they're trying to reduce the number because they, you know, so what resources they do have don't get spread too thin. So they're reducing some of the commissions, you know, whether it be the memorial, veterans, whatever it may be, and reduce those numbers so they're not trying to staff too many. And then try and focus on the key commissions such as conservation. You know, they've done a damn good job in getting two people here, and that'll mean a lot for our future, I think.
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of commissions that are struggling to get by.
Yeah, there were about, I think anywhere from 30 to 40 open positions this year for all the boards and commissions. Valeria, I'm not sure if you applied to multiple boards, but I think Sanji did. And I think the select board appointed him to commission, given our, you know, I had expressed potential quorum concerns in the future. So that might be why maybe they appointed at least Sanji, but I don't know. Did you apply to other boards too, or was it just for conservation or?
No, it was only for conservation. It was conservation, planning and zoning, and conservation was the one that seemed like it was the best available. And also I wanted to work with Tom.
Awesome.
You're a man of.
Don't use tonight as
Very
a
good day.
Yeah,
barometer
tonight
for
was
typical.
interesting. So you don't
Tonight
do
wasn't
that hopefully
typical,
too
so
often.
don't be scared off.
I won't be. Tonight was sort of fun, actually.
Yeah.
That was, I've been here almost officially 2 years now, and that was the first time I've seen a show cause go that way. So apologies if that was your first
All right.
one.
That's all right.
Yeah, you may have to go out there with the Officer Kimball or something, you know, when you want to get that float out of there.
Let me ask you a
I
question.
will check into the legal enforcement ability, but I did check the DEP manual. We should probably discuss this later. It's not listed on the agenda anymore.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, so I guess, did we want to just say who wants to just kind of check in on select board, zoning or planning, or do we want to figure that out next time or?
Well, since my wife's on planning, it's easy for me to keep an eye on it.
Okay.
Yeah, good idea.
Planning's covered.
Yeah.
Let's hear it for some midnight conversations.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Tom, you would also know one of my 48-hour updates then, but I'll get to that in a sec. But did we want to take volunteers for select board or zoning? I can try my best to read the select board agendas and stuff. It's just, I try to call in sometimes, but there's so much going on with select board. It's really hard to keep track of them when I'm
Yeah,
already.
Charlotte, you got enough to do with that.
You have enough, yeah, you definitely have enough.
You're, I would say you're running on firing on all 8 cylinders here, so I don't think.
Yep. Especially if I have to go to court.
So Val, you could volunteer here. I mean, you're an associate. You don't have to be a full commissioner to be a liaison.
I mean,
What do you like, ZBA or the Board of Selectmen?
if you're being serious, I mean, I'll do it. I'll serve at the board's pleasure. It's my first meeting though, so I don't want to take on too much responsibility, but I'm certainly happy to help out.
Well, I'm only mentioning it because everybody else, just about everybody else has an assignment, and so.
Which one meets less often?
Zoning.
Zoning. I think it's ZBA. They're only once a month, right?
Yeah, select board at some points they meet weekly. So that's a lot. That's a lot of meetings. Zoning board, I think, meets once a month, correct?
And they don't change much.
And it's really just more keeping an eye on the agenda and seeing if anything sort of matches
that's
with
right.
what we're doing.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I can make myself a.
You could probably just look at the minutes for zoning board.
Yeah, I can make myself a calendar thing to take a look at the minutes and then the future agendas and sort of see if there's anything that, that seems to be relevant to what we're doing. And then maybe I'll bring it to Charlotte or,
Perfect.
And with ZBA, there will be because a lot of developments in town do require that they appear before ZBA. And so there will be a fair amount of overlap there, but and it's also true of planning. Board of Selectmen less so, I think, that they don't really deal all that much. That's probably the easiest one in some sense, because you wouldn't have to go to every meeting. You don't have to go to, in fact, none of them have to go to every meeting. You just have to go to the ones where it looks like they're going to have to come to us. And Charlotte can help when when you see an address come up, you can ask her whether there might be an issue or not. And
yeah, Val, and you're welcome to, we can just keep it general, I think, with just checking the agendas and seeing if there's any potential, projects that will either overlap with us or any potentially contentious projects. For example, there was one that never made it to conservation. It was about a dock and it had a lot of zoning issues, and I'm pretty sure they withdrew. At least for dock projects, obviously residential subdivision projects, those projects very often tend to overlap with planning, zoning, and conservation. And then also anytime someone's requesting a variance, basically when it has to do with building setbacks, sometimes that just goes to zoning if it's not in an area of the commission's jurisdiction or if it doesn't need stormwater. So sometimes zoning is really looking at a lot of those decisions. So sometimes those just may be items that we never see or never deal with. It would really be the dock projects, the subdivision projects, the single construction family home stuff. If a raise and rebuild that's in a non-conforming lot that has to move, they still have to go to zoning to do that. So we can definitely, if you're comfortable with just keeping an eye on the zoning agendas and then just texting me if you have any questions, and we can just keep a track of the minutes. And I also am in communication with zoning and planning. We email all of our submissions to each other. So we're definitely aware of the projects that are coming up the pipeline.
That's a good idea.
I'm happy to do that. I'll add something to my calendar to peek at it, around their meetings, and then I'll keep you in the loop, Charlotte, if I see anything.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Sounds like maybe we'll leave select board to.
I'll do select board, but Charlotte,
Okay.
you gotta help me out once in a while.
Okay.
You know me, I get so swamped with stuff. I
Okay.
lose track.
Do you want me to send you a calendar reminder?
Send me select board this Thursday or whatever it is. That
Okay.
would help.
They meet on Tuesdays, so yeah.
Well,
I'll do Sandy Beach if you send me their meetings.
Okay. I do not know Sandy Beach and when they meet, so I can try to get more information about that.
all right.
But yeah, it would be nice if they would welcome a member from conservation. I'm not sure how that's going to go, but we'll see.
okay, so
All right.
our updates, Charlotte. What do you know?
I have a few. I'll try to be very quick. In terms of COCs, I just got a handful of them, so I guess I'll just quickly list them, but obviously we'll reserve comment until next time. I got them for 3 and 9 Diab Lane, 258 North Main, which is administrative, and then for Dolan Lane. So I will be looking at all those for August 24th. In terms of erosion controls, I've definitely been going around town and calling people, sending people emails, sending people letters. 80 Howe is in the midst of putting in a new erosion control barrier. They're working with Skyline Landscaping. So I talked to them and I talked to the owner, and that is going in tomorrow. Windy Hill, Kathy, after multiple attempts, I finally got a hold. I was about to send a cease and desist letter today, but he put one in and it's there. So, and cleaned the street as well. So I was about to issue a cease and desist, but he must have, maybe he heard that in his head and he called me. So that is
One
now.
at the corner, the one at the
Yep.
corner.
And then we can chat about this another time because I know it's probably a little late, but I spoke with Tom a little bit today. There are some, obviously our regulations are not perfect. And I'm trying my best in what limited time I have to try and revise those, but obviously it's taking me a while. So I'm going to pitch a proposal to see if you guys are interested. If there are any high priority changes that we want to make to our regulations for stormwater wetlands right now, I just need to know when we want to do it because we just have to advertise in the public newspaper that we are revising our regulations. It can't just go on an agenda. We have to put in a public notice. So if there are some high priority changes, and Tom, I think, has a few that we want to make right now, we can put those together in a list. I can make the edits, go through it with council, and we can vote on it. Because I'll admit, I was trying to tear apart the wetlands regs and I got so held up this summer. So I've kind of stopped doing that. I was on a roll for a while in the spring and then, yeah. So unfortunately my progress has come to a halt. So if there's any high priority changes that we want to make, now's the time if you want to do that.
I think the one hearing tonight did raise issue with whether or not someone can do an RDA or an NOI. I mean,
yeah.
I sat there and I read through it over and over and over again, and you can't.
It's tough. It's a judgment call with the commission.
It was a complete judgment call.
Mm-hmm. We do say in the resource area, 50-foot buffer and 100-foot buffer, we want an NOI, but if the applicant wants to question it, they can submit an RDA for inner buffer and outer buffer, but not for resource area.
Right.
So,
but it's really that could. I think somehow we could hone in on that better.
Okay. So kind of
in
like
the RDA
requirements for an RDA versus an NOI of like what types of projects or what types of activities would need an NOI versus an RDA?
Or
It
square
says-
footage.
It says in
sorry.
the RDA section that one of the reasons for filing it is that there's only work within the buffer and not
Right.
the resources.
Right.
Right. But that's
That's
almost
really
every
our
one
only
of our
parameter.
projects. I mean, that's every project they could come in front of us, and then we got to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we shouldn't have to do it. I mean, if you look at the whole.
We have such limited jurisdiction now. I feel like we need to be as protective as we can of both buffer zones. That's my
I
feeling.
totally agree. I've always thought that, always, yeah.
So FYI, the Saturday storm was 1.75 inches here in Cohasset, which is it's below even a 1 year. It was a normal storm for 24-hour rainfall. Didn't even reach the threshold of a 2-year storm. We saw a number of recent stormwater systems fail. So, and they tend to be in the steep areas of town. So that this is something that, we're dealing with models, and the modeling software that's being used is 40 years old. It's been superseded decades ago. We're using the statistics for what is a 2-year storm, a 5-year storm. That was done in 1992. The NOAA data is 2019. So we need to up our game here in terms of maybe holding our applicants to a higher standard. These models they don't work. It's junk engineering, it's junk science. And so I think that we need to really seriously consider moving to the EPA standard. Charlotte's been doing some research on that. The state's been working on it. They, as she said, these sort of dropped the ball, but we can do it. And I think we start by introducing them into our regulations and see how that goes. And if it looks like it's a little bumpy, we can go to the bylaw and be on firmer legal ground if we do that. But I think we really do need to be looking a little more closely at the stormwater systems, because, and clearly, here's something that's less than a 2-year storm, and we saw at least 3 failures here in my neighborhood. Remember, we are regulating to performance, not to a model. It says clearly in our bylaws that it's the performance of the stormwater system that matters, not the model. That says what model you can use, and it says some of the inputs that you can use, but it does not say we're regulating to the model. We're definitely regulating to the performance of those systems. So our contractors need to do a better job of investigating better systems. There's a number of issues too. Our regulations clearly say that we should be favoring, we are recommending smaller, more widely dispersed infiltration chambers. It's a suggestion. We need to move it to a reg, I think, because we're dealing with these massive systems that, you know, you got one point of failure there, right? If something goes wrong, the whole thing's shot. So, and we know that it's hard to infiltrate stormwater here, particularly after a wet spring and even summer. There's no room to infiltrate anything. So we need to see greater storage in some of these systems and slower release than we've seen. If you've driven around town on Sunday morning, it was a real horror show. The stuff was getting moved on our hillside here that was the size of golf balls, in some cases bigger than that. So there was quite a lot of sheet flow down most of the roads. 10 Ocean Ledge was one of them, but it was only one of several where this happened. It looked like things got pretty dicey there on Windy Hill. There was a lot of debris at the bottom of the hill that came down. Of course, as we saw one applicant point to his neighbors, the neighbors as being, we're only a little part of it. Well, we've got video to show that they're more than just a little part of it. They were the primary cause of the problem.
Thing that we can also do for any sort of additional type of enforcement is we can modify our stormwater permit template. We have a standard set of general conditions, and we are definitely able to issue special conditions with stormwater permits. But if we wanted to modify our template about specific types of monitoring during rainstorms and working with the agent and evaluating certain storm events and either before or after the fact. I mean, I know that's a lot. I know that's very dependent on weather, but it's something to consider, and I don't know if that needs obviously to be publicly advertised, kind of like what we're doing with the order of conditions template. I don't think we need to advertise that in the newspaper, but yeah, it's definitely worth a consideration. I guess maybe we could update our regs first and then see if we want to implement any standard conditions with stormwater. Because right now the stormwater permit, just to give you an example, doesn't require that I have to do a pre-inspection visit, which I would really like to see. And that would include looking at erosion controls. Also, the biggest area of concern with erosion that I see is when you switch contractors. Now, I'm not pointing fingers on companies or people or whatever. I'm just noticing the general trend of when they're doing the main work on the house, the infiltration systems, the basic outline of the driveway, all of that is usually really good. It's really when we're switching to the landscaping where I'm seeing a lot of these changes, like from what you just saw tonight with 10 Ocean Ledge. It was a landscaper who was what looked like they were dumping stuff down the catch basin. And all these different subcontractors may not have the permit. They may not understand that there even is a permit. Same thing with order of conditions. Most people at least know what an order of conditions is, but I think the local stormwater permits are something that maybe a lot of subcontractors aren't aware of. So stricter standards for, I don't know, making sure that all subcontractors are aware, they have my contact information, because I'll be I'll be honest with you, I rarely get the subcontractor's contact information. I usually always have the GC and I can always call the GC when I have issues, but it really is a telephone game that delays my enforcement. So that's something to also consider, I guess, with permit conditions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hate to point fingers, but that is the pattern.
Understood. Yeah, focusing then with stormwater permits on the landscaping contractor, maybe a good way to deal with that. Making sure you have them identified.
Yeah, and they are also an entity that often are the ones who are taking out the barriers without the general contractor's knowledge, without the owner's knowledge if they're not home. So these are, again, I hate doing it, but it is based off of what I've seen, that they just don't, maybe they don't understand, or it's so damaged, they're like, oh, we don't need this anymore, we're good. And it's like, no, the whole site is dirt, you need it. So, but yeah, stricter
Just
standards for erosion controls,
identify
I
who
guess.
they're using as a landscape contractor at when we're issuing the permit, so that we can make sure that they're
Absolutely.
that they're looped in. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that. I can emphasize, I mean, we already have a condition that I need all the contact information, but I think we can just emphasize that in the regulations too. And, maybe be stricter with enforcement of anytime, the erosion barrier is not inspected by the agent or, not on site or installed per plan can result in an immediate cease and desist. I mean, that's pretty much common sense, but if we put it in the regulations, that might be better because then we have something to point to.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, I'll do erosion control standards. Anything else for wetlands or stormwater? I think tree stuff, but unfortunately that might be a larger conversation. I don't know if we can resolve that quickly. It's going to involve probably a lot of debate, and I still need to do more research with looking at other towns, but that's always a common concern with stormwater. And Val, just for reference, the only thing in our stormwater regs is that we just require that trees of 12-inch caliper be pretty much labeled on the site plan. So we want to see all existing and proposed conditions. But when it comes to stormwater, it's very tricky with tree jurisdiction. Wetlands, it's much more cut and dry. So at least with large stormwater projects that are doing a lot of clearing, there's been a lot of concerns with, cutting down large trees that do play a part in water quality and stormwater management, but we just don't have the performance standards in our bylaws or regs specifically related to trees that can maybe mitigate those concerns. So a lot of it's really just a conversation with the applicant. And then we have attorneys tell us it's not our jurisdiction. So that would definitely be, I think, a high priority edit.
Can you pull a couple towns that are like
Eric, you all set?
local towns?
I'm going.
All
Go
right,
ahead,
happy
Eric.
birthday.
See you later.
All right,
Happy
happy
birthday.
birthday.
Bye-bye.
Get to sing him happy birthday. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, Chris, what was your question?
I was just gonna say, can you just pull some of the more like local and better regs just to compare, and then
Yeah.
I think we should juice up ours a bit for sure.
Yeah,
I know you referenced Dedham. Dedham's a
Dedham's
little
the
bit
strictest
more
one I have,
urban than we are. Maybe a little bit something, we could find some sort of medium, but
Yeah. Dedham is the strictest one that I'm aware of with tree stuff, but I still haven't looked around for the local, all the other South Shore towns. Yeah, I can definitely look at Dedham's and maybe a few others that might be in my brain. So I'll write tree standards for stormwater because they do play a part in water quality. They're just not a part of modeling. And really the only thing related to trees with stormwater modeling is the runoff curve number associated with different types of sites. So that's really all there is. So like engineers don't play, they in their calculations and reports, they're not really specifying what happens when you take out all the trees. They're just going by everything else HydroCAD assigns. So individual trees are not taken into account with the modeling.
And the canopy is so critical to slowing that water down before it even hits the ground, right? It reduces the velocity of the rain. It actually stores water in the sense that the leaves then drip down on lower leaves and ultimately ends up on the branches, and then it flows down to the trunk. I mean, the trees channel, at least the ones with the really coarse bark, channel that water right to the roots. And when you remove these big oaks and hickories, and as water's falling on a lawn, especially one that's just been seeded, it's a mess.
Yep, we also have really good recommendations already in our stormwater appendices. They're just not requirements. So changing those maybe to requirements with mitigation or with considering green infrastructure and LID alternatives, sorry, low impact development alternatives. Because as I was explaining to Tom today over the phone, there's a bunch of LID measures to make sites better, to improve water quality and stormwater management. And the only thing that we really see on stormwater plans is obviously the standard types of trenches and subsurface systems. Like nobody really gets creative, I guess, with these types of green infrastructure and LID development. And the only LID measure I ever see is when someone reduces impervious on the site, which is great. But then sometimes they'll say we're reducing impervious by 35 square feet. And it's like, okay. So, you know, maybe a more serious consideration of LID measurements and design and looking at those green infrastructure alternatives and really determining if this is the best design for stormwater to protect water quality. But that also gets into bylaw stuff. So that might be a series of edits, but that's also one.
I think also it would be good whether both in stormwater and in wetland protection. I think there should be a penalty if you don't identify trees that are going to be removed or that are damaged during construction. Because one of the projects tonight, they had very limited access. That tree is not going to make it through the project. And anyone with any experience in construction knows that tree is not going to be there when it's over. So
Especially with the roots near the foundation.
Yeah, the foundation is going to be on it. The trucks are all going to drive on top of it. It's not going to make it. It's just not going to make it. And I think there should be a serious penalty for something like that. They didn't want to show it because they wanted to do the RDA, but
okay, I can maybe tree. Yeah, I'll yeah. Okay.
And we've seen a lot of damage on other projects too, where they have little, and I just think we should have a penalty for it of some sort.
It's the overdig. I think that especially with the subsurface systems with driveways, it's the overdig on abutting trees. Abutting properties are tougher, but yeah, if it's on a property that we're looking at for a project, you know, I think maybe we should have like certain radiuses drawn around drawn around the trees to kind of see.
Trees should be represented by their canopy, their existing canopy, and as well as their trunk size. The existing canopy should be shown to within a foot or something.
And
So
the
that
value, their carbon sequestration value is something we can't get into, but I mean, that's like what it all boils down to, really. I mean, a lot of times it's like, there's no value to these trees. The people don't have any. They don't understand the value of the trees that they're cutting down. It's
the last one that I was going to suggest is, since we go back and forth on tree stuff, this is a bigger edit, but I will just say I think we could put in a quick table of the commission, of like general replacement mitigation, and then just adding a note that the commission may require additional mitigation on a case-by-case basis per project. So we could have a general guideline of, you take out a live tree in the 50-foot buffer, you have to plant 3. Take out a dead tree, you have to plant 1. You take, what I mean? Like we could have a quick table. Hingham has an administrative tree process, which they even admitted they don't know if DEP is going to like that, but they have an administrative process where you take out 1 tree in the 100-foot, the 50-foot, or the resource area, whatever it is. Like they tell you what you have to replace it with caliper size and species and all this other stuff. So I could maybe use that as a guide, but then just add the general clause that the commission may require additional mitigation as they see fit based on the project or something. And then we don't have to stick to the table. We can just say, this is our general guidelines. So then maybe applicants are just made aware when they want to cut down trees. Most of them are open to replacing the trees, at least the ones that I speak to, but whether or not they want to plant more than 1 or something like that. So, and then the dead tree versus the live tree thing, I think is worth considering, even though obviously dead trees still have value. The live trees are really, I think, what we'd want to see more mitigation for. And then maybe including safety parameters. Because I will say, guys, I mean, I know like I'm interpreting the regulations to the best of my ability, but in the definition of pruning, we do have limited cutting down of diseased and dead trees that pose a hazard. So it is a judgment call for me. And I usually always do recommend an RDA at the very least unless the tree is literally uprooted and about to fall and hurt someone, I've authorized obviously removal to mediate any emergency hazard situations, but it is difficult to peel apart the dead tree issues with the branches, if the trees are upright and maybe just the branches could come down. And I have professional arborists telling me that trees need to come down, but then, you know, obviously we look at the tree and it's upright and it's maybe just some branches that are the issue. So maybe the dead tree stuff we can look more into. Because I don't want us to get legally implicated too. Like if we tell an applicant they can't take down a dead tree and then it falls and hurts someone, and I don't want us to be liable. So maybe we can look at something for that with town council.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
idea.
Okay.
That's the
I'll
last
just-
edit.
I'll repeat myself. City of Cambridge requires
Cambridge?
an inch for inch replacement of caliper.
Whoa.
Okay,
You cut that,
Really?
you cut that, yeah, you cut down a 20-inch tree, you
Okay.
plant 5 4-inch trees or 4 5-inch trees to replace it.
okay.
It's a good system.
That's a great formula.
Yeah.
Maybe because there aren't that many trees left in Cambridge.
Cambridge is 80% paved though, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yes, but you know, that came about because I can't think of who did it. So someone came out with a kind of a study where they said that the break
deserts.
point- the break point for like a healthy community was 25% coverage. And Cambridge looked at themselves and they had 22% coverage. And they said, well, if people are going to take it down, it's just going to keep going down and down and down. So they enforce it by
They're
inch per
aggressive
inch.
about it.
Yeah.
I
So
worked
what
there,
happens
so
if you
I
have
know all about it.
a big tree in your yard, but you don't have room for 5 trees?
Then you
Well,
donate to the tree bank, baby.
Into the bank.
Oh, okay.
We have projects all the time. Big developers go in there and they don't have room. You know, they try to put in islands and parking lots and things, and they still don't have enough. And you know, I've seen bills, $100,000 bills that they have to pay into the bank. Yeah.
And Chris, I think you, actually both Chris's, I think you guys had asked this of like what the actual tree fund is and does, because I feel like a lot of it is more that they use for removing trees. So I think if we're gonna
Well,
add any
that's
sort
not
of
a-
stuff.
If you read the tree policy that was published in 2018 or not even, it's only a couple years old. The tree bank is only supposed to be for new trees.
Okay.
And maintenance of trees. They're not supposed to use it for removal of trees.
Okay, so yeah, maintenance as in
Cambridge or
pruning
us?
or,
Not removal. I'll pull it
Okay.
up and send it to you, but
okay. No, yeah, I'll look at the tree policy. I've read it before. I just want to make sure maintenance doesn't mean, you know,
it's
just-
not even maintenance. It's something
Okay.
less than maintenance.
Okay.
But there is one other thing as the liaison to the Open Space Committee, Adam Norman, who's the co-chair, put forth a bill, I guess, to the selectmen. And he was asking me to put it to us as the commission, whether or not we would support it. It's a ban of single-use plastic bottles. It's something that's been passed by Hingham and some surrounding towns, so I know I asked Charlotte to try to get a poll, but I think we.
council
put
said
that
we
for a
can
vote.
publicly vote
And
if
he
we,
was actually, he did put it up to the select board and they did not support it, so it's gonna be something that's gonna be a ballot. It's gonna be on the ballot
Okay.
in the future, but in terms of just support, I don't know if we can just put it up for a vote if we're in favor or not.
Single use water, correct?
Single use, like not gallon jugs, but like
drinks.
like,
Right, but it was only water.
yes.
Yes. And you know, I'm gonna kind of echo one of the selectmen's response, and that was that if you take water out of the equation when you go into the mini mart, then kids like my 16-year-old will start drinking soda and stuff instead. And I'm very happy that my son goes in and drinks a water. When he goes out with his friends for lunch at the pizza parlor, he drinks water. And I have to tell you, I mean, more times than not, he's carrying water with him. But on those rare occasions, I have to say, I'm happy he's drinking water and not all the other crap that all his friends drink. So,
I think he's,
but
I don't think we have the capacity to battle the soda industry, so,
no, I know.
Yeah.
But so here's the
Problem is, a lot of
question.
those water bottles are from the soda industry, like Dasani and, what's the
Yeah.
other one? Who owns, Coke owns something else. Dasani is owned by Pepsi or vice versa. Yeah.
But Chris, let me ask you this question. Will it be illegal just to sell it, or will it be illegal to possess it?
oh yeah, no, the open space committee is gonna be cracking, we're gonna be issued, batons, and we're gonna be on Sandy Beach, and if you have, we're gonna be breaking wrists if you have water bottles. No, the just
Throw it at the piping
sale,
clovers.
the sale, they won't be sold in Cohasset, supermarkets, like single-use bottles is the thing, or in the
And
schools.
you say Hingham's done that already too?
Yeah.
So
So I'll have to drive all the way to Weymouth to get it.
does it include nips?
No, just water.
No, that's bad. It needs to include nips.
Yeah.
I mean, water is the first thing. That's the.
I think, well, that's one of the reasons I would have opposed it. Water should be the last thing, because it's really a privileged stance to take that everybody can just have clean drinking water come right out of their taps. Because if you
No,
don't have,
I'm just bringing it to you as a liaison. I understand that we don't have the best water quality in Cohasset. There are PFAS and everything. I am just bringing it to you as a liaison to vote on.
Well, I will tell you, young fathers, that when your kids are doing things like the spelling bee and the fun run and all that, you're going to be very happy that they're handing your kid a little bottle of water and not a whatever else they might hand them if the water's not available.
All right.
Well,
I don't know.
I think if there's enough pressure on.
You put a good argument together, both of you guys, and I hear you.
Yeah.
It's
You know, if enough towns ban these plastic water bottles, and they are terrible, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
They are doing incredible damage.
They can't recycle them.
Ultimately, what would happen is the bottlers would move back to aluminum cans, which are recyclable. And even if they don't get
And that
recycled,
is an option. They do have.
aluminum will oxidize and long before a plastic bottle will disintegrate, long before it disintegrates. So
why don't they have a deposit on them?
what, you mean water?
bottles. Yeah.
Not a push.
Oh, well, haven't you ever heard of lobbyists?
Okay. No, I just didn't know if there was another reason, because it's crazy. I mean, you know.
No, they dodged it. They probably made the same arguments you did.
Well,
Our kids are gonna drink Coca-Cola instead of.
not for that. They got to pay the nickel one way or another. So
Nobody.
So
cares.
I don't even know if it matters if we vote on it, because I think it needs to go in front of the. It's just gonna be
Voters.
voted on, but.
Yes, yeah.
Another thing that's emerging, and I won't get into it because it's a whole other conversation, the whole PFAS thing is definitely an emerging topic. I'll say a lot of stormwater grants are now being granted by the state and the federal government to investigate, PFAS sources of, the main sources and how it's polluting stormwater. And so it's definitely an emerging topic. And so the plastic water bottle thing, other other materials that have PFAS, chemicals, this issue will keep coming back. So if the town shoots down plastic water bottle bans and everything else, like the PFAS issue will eventually emerge to such a point where maybe towns are much more incentivized or even pressured to reconsider those types of mitigation measures. So it is a tough question though, because obviously, as Will has noted, it's a privileged, not every town has, not every street or town has clean drinking water. So it is
Who
definitely,
knows?
yeah.
If you aren't aware of it, the Woods Hole, the whole Woods Hole report is available at the public library, and there is an opportunity to vote on, it's just a straw poll, but to vote on the alternatives that Woods Hole has proposed for literally defense of the town, flood defense of the town. And so I'd encourage you to take a look at it. They did a great job on their report.
Their presentation was amazing.
Yeah, just like they did for, yeah, oh, nobody came. That's what was.
Hey,
weird.
I watched it. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, I saw it on video. I was out of town or doing something else and I couldn't make it, but I encourage you guys to take a look at that, skim it. You don't have to read it in great detail, but it'll certainly inform you about the hazards that the town is facing and will face in the future. And I think they make 3 or 4 proposals for how the town can protect itself.
Yeah.
So, and then you could decide what you like the looks of and weigh in on it. So
Yeah.
be sure to do that.
Great, thanks.
Town spent a lot of money on it. It's a serious subject, far more serious than that barn we call a town hall that people want to spend millions on. So, yeah, sorry, Charlotte. You may end up.
If I have working computer, that's all I care about, and AC. They just put in ancient AC units so that I don't suffocate. So that's all I need. But I have the best office in town, as you guys have seen, so I'm spoiled. So I can't
do.
complain.
Yeah.
Yep. Second best seat in the house.
Okay, do we have any other issues?
The only other one I'll just state
Agent
quickly.
updates.
Yeah, the only other 48-hour issue I'll state quickly is I reached out to DEP for information about the recent Supreme Court ruling. It is Sackett versus EPA, if anyone wants to Google it. Essentially, they are narrowing the federal jurisdiction and definition under the Clean Water Act for wetlands. And DEP has weighed in a little bit because I just reached out to them today. They said the Supreme Court decision will have an impact on the 401 and 404 water quality certifications under Clean Water Act. So DEP is going to be awaiting guidance on how this decision is going to impact our 401 WQCs. It has obviously right now no impacts directly on the Wetlands Protection Act for Massachusetts. But you know, DEP has, just on a side note, DEP has encouraged me, agents, commissions, et cetera. We really need to be overly critical at looking at site plans that have isolated vegetated wetlands. Isolated vegetated wetlands are not protected under the Wetlands Protection Act. They're only protected under local bylaws. Isolated wetlands are very often hidden resource areas that sometimes are not critically evaluated. So the Wetlands Protection Act does protect isolated land subject to flooding. So we need to make sure that it's not also an ILSF. So when I see IVWs on site plans, I am asking for that information to confirm. Because very often that is also something that can, of course, if commissions overlook it and it's not jurisdictional, it's not protected under a local bylaw, it can have an impact on the wetlands, on water quality, on, connecting waters. So that's something on a side note that DEP has just incessantly recommended to commissioners to just be very cautious whenever someone is potentially quick to write off a wetland as an IVW. But yeah, so I guess the Supreme Court decision will have an impact, at least to DEP for 401s, but not for the Wetlands Protection Act. So that was what I wanted to confirm. I wanted to be like, okay, I want to make sure I understand this. Is the Wetlands Protection Act safe? And he basically said, for now, yes. So, and it's a state, it's Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act. So, that it doesn't directly impact the EPA's, losing the case doesn't directly impact that. So I don't know if anyone saw that, but if you want more information about the court case, I can send it to you. But it was just made Monday or Tuesday this week. Fun. I know that's depressing, but my other updates, do you want me to go through those quickly or save them for next time?
It's 10 o'clock. Save them for next time.
Okay.
Unless you could select among them those that might be critical.
Nope. And if you guys look at them on the agenda, unless you guys want me to save them right now, I can save them for next time.
Yeah.
Yep. And then special conditions. I know we keep pushing this off, but do you guys want more time to look at them? Tom has already looked at them, but Chris, you're not in your bed.
Yeah, I need more time.
I know, sorry. I made a lot of edits and town council has reviewed them all.
Good.
But also Val, I'll send those to you too. They're in OneDrive. We have a special conditions boilerplate where with every order of conditions, the order of conditions form has a standard set of conditions from the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act form. We have an additional boilerplate per se of all these special conditions that we list with we issue with every order of conditions. A lot of them are pretty repetitive to either our regulations or to what the Wetlands Protection Act form already says. We just kind of emphasize a little bit more in our, in our local jurisdiction. We also have a lot of other conditions, like you may have heard tonight about no pesticides, herbicides, fertilizers, et cetera, within wetlands jurisdictional areas. And then we also have any mitigation plantings have to survive 3 full growing seasons. So I'll send you that list if you want to look at it and maybe make any suggestions when, but yeah, we're going to vote on that at some point. And that is the thing that we issue with all of our orders of condition.
Okay, yeah, sure. If it's in there too, I'll look through it. But yeah, anything you want to
Thank
say?
All right. Hi, is that Charlotte? Well, or
Is that
No,
it?
this one's Tallulah.
hi, Tallulah. But yeah, we're all right. I think we're done, right?
Oh,
Tom,
that's late, Tallulah.
Make a
I
motion.
know.
Motion to
to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye, you guys.
Aye. Good night.
Hi,
I
thank you,
know.
Good night,
Charlotte.
everyone.